living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm FTFE, welcome back to the channel that opens the airlock and flushes stupidity into the near vacuum of space. Tonight we have a debate about the moon landings. Did they happen? Did they not happen? Obviously I think they did. My opponent thinks that they didn't, so it's going to have some discussion about that. But first of all, I want to talk about what happened earlier, and I want to give a thank you to Sean and JC Photocycling for helping Anthony Riley definitely become Dumb Fuck of the Year. Because now, apparently guys, the shadow cast by a building isn't a natural shadow and is correlation and not causation. So to clarify that, the building does not cause a shadow, according to Anthony Riley. So I know Sean's with JC, so Sean, just tell JC I said thanks for that.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, so
can I interject real quick, and can I make a request? Can we please stay on topic tonight? Moon landings only, no dumb fuck of the year, Anthony Riley talk. Unless we're going to be talking about JM Truth and not Riley. Yeah. Please, it's all about suppression of the truth at this point.
If you guys didn't see it earlier on, Sean debated Riley on SciStrike channel about whether moonlight is calling. Anthony Riley said some incredibly stupid things. Like, I'm not talking just normal stupid, like, I was dumbfounded with the amount of stupid that boy was spitting out, honestly. So, yeah, thanks very much for that, Sean. You definitely helped the cause there. Much appreciated. But Team Skeptics still thinks JM Truth's going to win, don't you?
I don't think JM Truth is going to win, bro. I know. No. I-N-O JM Truth is going to win, okay?
That sounds about right.
That was in honor of JM Truth there.
I see someone in the chat spamming David Thorne. He's spamming debate John Smith Globe Lie. I've asked many times and he's too much of a chicken. If you know John Smith Globe Lie and he wants to debate me, then he is welcome on. But let's get on with what we're here for tonight. We've got Team and Sean with me as always. Team's just going to hang out and be his normal cool self. Sean's going to basically moderate for tonight, and my opponent is a young man called Ace. Ace, would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
Hi, I don't know, I'm just a random guy on the internet with controversial opinions. A little bit of a troll, I'll be honest. I mean, come on, I'm got some NASA swag on. Even got a different cup than last time. It's a Challenger cup this time.
Nice.
So I'll be sipping a little bit from that one. But just I like debating controversial topics, and I like the truth. And I mean, obviously, I think I got the truth. So we'll see how this goes.
So just to clarify your position, you're not a flat earther, just so everybody knows. Is that correct?
No, absolutely not. No.
And you do believe that outer space exists?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, of course.
You are just extremely skeptical of the Apollo program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I suppose we should just get into it. What is your issues with the Apollo program?
I think the photographic evidence is pretty revealing. That's my main thing. So, I mean, we can talk about all sorts of hypotheticals, like why didn't Russia squeal, all sorts of things like that. But I think that an examination of the photographic record of Apollo reveals a lot of things that are indicative that it was taken here on Earth, probably in some kind of soundstage, maybe in the desert, in Nevada, somewhere. So most of my arguments are going to revolve around inconsistencies in the photographic record. And now, mind you, there's some people that would like to say, okay, sure, maybe there's these fake images, and but the fake images don't imply that we didn't go to the moon. I mean, what if cosmic ray particles destroyed the photograph that had to recreate it? My response to that is, okay, well, why doesn't NASA just admit that these photographs were recreations and not original? So we'll see.
Okay. Is there any particular photographic evidence that you want to talk about? Is it the photos that obviously you've shown me and you've spoken about before? Is that your main points?
So that's one of my main points, and yeah. So this is a pair of images that I talked about last time on Team Skeptic's show, and I think that it very clearly shows that right there in the center that this mountain in the background, supposedly 6 kilometers away, is actually not 6 kilometers away. That it is about 300 meters away. Now, it's obviously going to be very difficult to see that from just the way that you're flipping back and forth between those two images. But using very standard tools like Photoshop or GIMP, you can merge those two images together into a GIF, which actually the fine folks at Metabunk did that just for me, and that's actually was the topic of debate that I had with Team Skeptic, was that specific image from Metabunk.
I actually have the Photoshop files here for that image
Excellent.
loaded in.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Perfect.
what is it about the? So that's the one on the background, and then I put the other one on top of it there. So what is it about this that gives you cause to think that it's faked?
Yeah. So when you zoom into the between the backdrop and that white box in between the legs of the lunar lander, there is a very clear line that creates what I at least call it a discontinuity in parallax, where it seems quite obvious that there is a stage floor leading up to a backdrop, and it looks very similar, like my hands, where you can see it go coming up, and then boom, there's this discontinuity where the backdrop is seen.
Okay. I honestly don't see what you're seeing. The images that you originally got off the NASA website, you do know that they were altered for aesthetics, though, right? That's kind of a main point here, is that they aren't the original images.
So you did mention that. I didn't inquire further. I was actually interested in actually talking about that point that you were making. So if you could go over what you're telling me there, I'd be appreciated.
Well, they were the sets of images were altered so that they were more aesthetically pleasing, so that everything was in line. So they've used the transformation process to make everything look as it should, so it's more aesthetically pleasing, so all the images can be shown together. And that's what when you use the Photoshop with the files of the two of them, you can see that there has been no, wrong one went away. That they have altered several aspects of the photo to take away distortions from the camera, like barrel distortions and stuff that the camera puts on. So the images were altered so that those barrel distortions weren't present, so that the images could be presented in a more aesthetically pleasing way. So to use these images, I don't really see it as being evidence of anything. And more importantly, the actual site that these have been taken have been clarified to, proven to be real by several different agencies. So I'm not denying that these two images are different and they appear to have parallax errors and stuff, but that's because that's what they put in the images to make them so that they could be like that. And if let me just get up. Where's the? If you bear me 1 sec, I'll get the other
Here,
photo.
if you could excuse me for just 10 seconds, I apologize.
Yeah.
Just 10 seconds. I'll be right back.
Okay, so if I get that. All right. So he's back in a second, obviously, guys. So my point that I'm talking about here is that the two images, they aren't the original images that NASA took on the moon. They have been altered, But more importantly is that the positions and everything have been proven to be correct, and by I think that's the Streamlander.
Okay.
Sorry, the Selene photographs in 2008, the Japanese aerospace lunar probe obtained several photographs showing evidence of the moon landings, and it actually matches up with what they showed in the photographs with the distances that they said that it was. And I think that is pretty good evidence to show that the images weren't staged. If we can have not just one, but it's been Selene, it's been Chandrayaan-1, it's been Sanjay-2. You know, there's been several different agencies that have, you know, clarified that these were the places that they took place. I mean, even as far as being able to see the tracks of the lunar rovers and stuff from, you know, from the orbiters. So
I honestly think that that's pretty weak evidence, actually. And there's been some analysis that have been done of those the scans where they actually show that the lunar lander, at least relative to the index, the size of the lunar lander is actually much too large compared to the scale that's provided. So, and plus, I mean, they're very low quality images. I don't think that they're very convincing. And plus, is there some way for me to share my screen using the client that I have here for?
No, but if you could send me whatever you've got, I can quickly put it up for you.
Okay. So, sure. So I
just if it's a picture or anything or a video, just send it to me in Discord.
Are you using just a standard camera, or are you using a virtual camera?
I'm using a web camera. Yeah, just direct streaming with my web camera.
Okay. Yeah, you're gonna have to send it to Fight then.
Yeah. I probably should have maybe set up a virtual camera. That would have been a good idea. But here, actually, let me see.
Okay, well, whilst you're just getting that, here is one other thing that I wanted to point out is that obviously your issue is with, if I get the correct images, sorry, my computer slowed down for a second there. Right, so your issue is that obviously there's discontinuity in what looks like to the position, the relative positions of everything to where it is in the background, right? So when you look at images that are taken slightly apart, you get the same effect with something like this, which is, you know, the same kind of distance apart as the pictures that you presented. And it shows that the backgrounds and everything do shift in a similar way. Now, what I want you to point out, to see here is, if you look at, say, the tower, the power tower on the right, that barely moves, and you can kind of compare that to the mountain on the top right, which barely moves in the same kind of way, with the position of the photos being kind of similar of the way that they're done. It shows that the parallax errors and everything that you're getting are the normal kind of parallax errors that you would expect with photos taken at slightly different angles. But again, the photos have been touched up anyway and altered for, you know, aesthetic reasons. So honestly, using these pair of images as evidence that it's been in a soundstage or something, I think is very weak, because we can not only clarify the positions by several different agencies, proving that that position on the moon is a real position, and we can also create the same effect just looking at the general landscape.
So can I make a point about that, actually? So I actually just sent you the image, but so I think that NASA is definitely competent enough to be able to create these kinds of lunar backgrounds from the images that they took back in the 1960s, because the only way that NASA could safely land on the moon is if they had detailed topographical maps of these areas that they were planning on landing on. It's not any surprise that you'd be able to take these detailed topographical maps that they took from a variety of sources. Some of them, I believe, from satellites that they launched to the moon, and some from Earth-based observations, and to be able to recreate a soundstage that adequately represents the scene. The problem is that there's still these discrepancies that are visible. And here's this line right here that I was talking about between the box and the backpack of the astronaut. So this is where the stage floor ends and the backdrop begins. And this line is key to at least this particular argument. Now, you did actually ask me to provide additional arguments, so I do have additional pictures that we can go over. But the whole point of this pair of images, and I'm actually very glad that you found the particular images from Alice, which is a really excellent source, a lot of interesting information on there. With Oleg, I think Jefimenko's work, which is what my argument is based off of. And he goes into detail with additional images, but I think really that the only image that's required to really make the case is this particular pair, where it is just so clear that at this line, this blue line that I've drawn on this image, is where the stage floor ends and the backdrop begins.
Okay. So if that blue line is to represent where the stage floor ends and the backdrop begins, I see a big problem with that, because if you compare it to the GIF flipping between the images, the background is shifting in exactly the same way. Pause it. So if you take the line from the back of the backpack, I'll get it on the other image because it's that one, from the back of the so it's just by his hand going over towards the lunar lander, but the whole image is shifting in a way that would indicate that it's not some kind of cut. There doesn't seem to be a clear-cut line there when you flip between the two images.
Are you sure? I mean, you can see those craters right above the crosshairs, and that where those craters are, you can actually see the craters sinking underneath the stage floor.
No, I honestly don't see them sinking. I mean, I can look at, if you look just above the crosshair, I can see that there seems to be a set of 3 craters that are quite clear, and they don't seem to be sinking or anything. They seem to be shifting in parallax, which is kind of what you would expect from these images. But again, you know, you can recreate that effect pretty much anywhere.
Now, mind you, those craters are supposed to be about 5 kilometers away, which is about actually even further than those smokestacks in the image. And as you can see from the white bit of grass in the front of the image is shifting about the same as the images in the Apollo image, yet the smokestacks in the background just don't move at all. Yet there's a massive amount of shift happening with those craters and what seems to be the backdrop.
Again, we have to take into account that the images were transformed to be more aesthetically pleasing. So there was shifts in the parallax and everything, that due to the fact that they photoshopped the image to make them look better. What kind of transformations were made, and which specific transformation do you think would cause that kind of shift of an object that's supposedly 5-6 kilometers away? And do you think that you would be able to recreate that with that smokestack image? Very possibly. I mean, I'm not an expert in photography. Based on the research that I've been doing, is that to make those pair of the GIF that the guy made, who, oh, by the way, the guy that actually brought this out to everybody, what's his name, Dr. Oleg Olenek.
Olenek, yeah, not Jefimenko, Olenek.
That doesn't seem to be a real person. I've literally searched everywhere for him. He does not seem to exist. So
that's actually not true.
Apart from in the, you know, with relation to this, I've done as much searching as I
So
could
that's not
possibly
true.
do.
So the MetaBunk thread that I got that GIF with the blue background in, someone actually did confirm. Now, I mean, this is obviously hearsay, but in that MetaBunk thread, someone did actually contact the Ukrainian university that's listed, and they talked to the dean, and the supposedly the dean did confirm to this this individual that participates in MetaBunk that Olenek is indeed a real person and did indeed graduate from there. But the thing is that I don't understand why that's even an important point.
It was just something interesting that I found, because I saw that on MetaBunk, and then I did my own searching to try and find actually any kind of professional details about this guy, and I couldn't find anything. But it is irrelevant. You're right. It was just something that during my research that I came across. So again, I'm not an expert in photography. I've been trying to learn a lot more, because a lot of the flat earth arguments are around, the whole taking photos of things. But the guy that the guy that's made this, he's used a set of tools that aren't suitable for getting rid of a kind of a barrel distortion, pincushion distortion from lenses. He's used scaling, rotation, distortion, perspective shift, and offset, and none of those will actually adjust for subtle curvilinear lens distortions that are inherent in most lenses.
So we know for a fact the exact model, the Hasselblad, and then the two different lenses. So there was I think 70 millimeter equivalent lens that was used, and I think a 35 millimeter equivalent or 40 millimeter equivalent lens, and I'm pretty sure that the images or the lens that was used to take these images was the 40 millimeter lens. And the thing is that there would be no significant barrel distortion, and actually even on a 70 millimeter equivalent lens, you wouldn't see much barrel distortion. That only happens with very extreme telephoto lenses, and as far as I know, the telephoto lens was not used to create these two images. I mean, I don't know how that's relevant.
Most, as far from what I'm aware, you're always going to get some kind of pincushion barrel distortion, regardless of the
very
lens.
Minor.
But
but again, so how does barrel distortion create this discontinuity in parallax where that line is formed?
But again, it doesn't, and that was my point, because the images were touched up, so the perspective and everything was shifted on purpose to make them look like that. And so that's why I'd say using this as evidence that the moon landings were fake is a bit wrong, because the set of images doesn't actually come from NASA when you put them together like that. It's not NASA images, like original NASA images. They have been altered to be more aesthetically pleasing.
Well, they were altered by NASA, supposedly.
Yeah, but they were altered is the point, right?
Okay, well, so we talked about this before. So let's talk about this in context of a court case. So let's say that there's a very dark image taken of some mugger, and the prosecutors took this image and they lightened it up in Photoshop to reveal the face of this mugger. Why do you believe that just because this image has been edited, it's not admissible as evidence?
Because it's not showing the original dimensions. It's not the actual images that were taken by NASA, and that's very different to saying, oh, well, I can use a mugshot and highlight certain parts to get that you haven't altered the dimensions of the face. But within those images that NASA have actually altered, it's introducing extra parallax distortion and things like that, which then this apparent Oleg guy has tried to correct within the Photoshop.
But again, so how do any of these transformations create this discontinuity in the parallax where you see the stage floor meeting the backdrop? I've been asking again and again, and I haven't gotten a straight answer for that.
I don't see the discontinuity that you're seeing is my point. If we go back to the Photoshop, I want to try and add a line.
Well, just that you can do whatever you want.
Oh, wrong one. So that is the one.
Now,
give me one sec. Yep, Karen, you talk while I just get this bit sorted.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see pretty clearly that this line also lines up with the hill that goes off to the right side. And this is pretty typical. Actually, I mean, I'm not gonna say much about Stanley Kubrick. I mean, I don't particularly believe in that theory, or I'm agnostic to that theory, let's say. But this kind of back projection technology, it's common to see this kind of line where the foreground and the background have this very sharp line distinguishing the two, and I think that it's quite easily visible. In actually many of the images that are official NASA photos. So this isn't the only example, but again, just you claiming that you don't see the line,
I can't. Sorry, I can't edit the Photoshop thing because it's
no worries,
not
no
an editable file.
But
no. My point is, I genuinely don't see the line that you're seeing, like, especially if I look at this, to me it just looks like a parallax shift.
It's very obvious to me. I mean, even in this quite low image, I mean, I see it very plainly. And it does indeed look like there's a backdrop that's rotating slightly. Because again, remember, this dark crater that's in the background is supposed to be kilometers away. And when I look at this does not pop out to me as something that is 6 kilometers away. This pops out to me as something that's quite close, maybe a few hundred meters away.
Honestly, Ace,
anyway,
I just really don't see what you're seeing with that. I don't see the connection where you've put the line. You know, I'm looking at it and I'm trying to see what you're seeing here. You know, I'm trying to assume that there is some kind of backdrop added there, and it just doesn't look like that to me. And again, based on the fact that I think it's not. Yeah, this is the image that has been actually altered. You know,
right? Can you zoom
aesthetics.
in on that image? Yeah, can you zoom in on that image?
I need to add it to a color. Bear with me.
Okay.
So that is 2, 3, 4. Just give me one sec.
Because I mean, you don't even need the GIF to perceive this line. It's quite perceptible just in these still images.
Okay.
And anyway, I did send you another pair of images. Since you did ask me for more content other than just this particular argument. So, oh, perfect. Good. All right, yeah, keep zooming.
That's as far as it let me go in.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, I pretty clear. You know, you've got those 3 craters right there, right in the center, and it seems like there's this pretty darn distinct line there, where it seems like it's a stage floor leading up to a backdrop. I mean, I keep repeating myself at this point in time, but I think it's quite distinct, even in the still images.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just not seeing what you're seeing there. But
that's fine. I mean, I guess I'm not going to convince you about that.
All right, let's have a look at the other images, and you can talk to me about them.
Excellent.
But my main point with the other images is the fact that they were altered in the first place. So to try and use them as evidence of fakery is a bit of a strange thing to do, because they're not actually evidence. They are altered images. But anyway,
okay, I just refer back to my mugshot darkening example. Like I said, I think edited images are very much admissible as evidence.
Okay, so this is the next one you've sent me. What is the issue with this?
Oh, so, oh gosh, is that a lower quality version of what I sent you? Because that.
Let me just up the quality of what I'm sending you. It's
Oh,
just that's
perfect.
just what
Okay,
I'm
there
sending
we go.
back to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent, excellent. Yeah. Okay. Actually, could you look at this one's a little bit more subtle. It has exactly the same kind of artifact or discrepancy as the other one. I think the other image is much more obvious in what I'm going to be talking about.
One sec. Let me get the other one up.
All right. This one again, it shows the same discrepancy, but I'd like to start with the other one.
Come on. There we go.
Perfect. Okay. So the shadow of the lunar lander, you can see a very clear double shadow here.
Yeah.
And we know that this isn't a double exposure because the craters are also very clear and in focus. And if it was a double exposure, then you would also see double craters as well. But you can see at the top of the lander, there is a very clear double shadow, which indicates two light sources.
And what's your problem? You're assuming there wasn't two light sources?
The only light source was the sun.
Are you sure about that?
Absolutely, 100%. What kind of? So, do you think that they brought studio lighting to the moon?
Well, I would have thought that maybe the lander and stuff would have had lighting on, but
No. There's none. And plus, how would a light on the lander cause a double shadow of the lander?
Okay, bear with me. This is one I've actually looked into before. I'm just trying to find where I put my research for this. Just give me
Excellent.
1 second. Come on, where are you? You know when you set files, you put files somewhere and then you can't remember what folder you put it in?
Oh, I know the feeling. I've got a million billion files.
Just give me 1 sec. All right, you ready?
Excuse the radio silence, guys.
Yeah, sorry, bear with me 1 sec. I'm trying to. No, I can't. I just searched my computer for the file that I thought the name was, but all right, never mind. I just have to go off of talking about it. So, all right. So, assuming that it is just one light source, there could have been reflections off of things causing extra shadows. Along with the fact that the surface is really uneven. I had a lot more detail in the thing that trying to see if I can find the website that I found it from. Okay, no, that's not it. All right, just give me 1 sec. I'm trying to get the better evidence than that.
So I actually have an image that I created that actually shows why reflections could never possibly explain this double shadow, and why only a double light source could explain it. And the main thing is that any reflections of a light source that is behind the lander would be reflected away from the frame of the image. There would not. I mean, you would need some sort of refraction of the light, which I don't think that there's any kind of material that was on the lander that would cause a refraction.
I cannot find what I'd got about it before. Just give me 1 sec. I think I'm nearly there.
Yeah, absolutely. Please take it. Well, we're limited on time, obviously, but I would very much love if you could get what you're looking for.
No, I can't find what I'm looking for. Right. Well, basically, my answer to it is that a low sun and uneven surface, it can distort the angles of shadows and images, right? And that's basically what I'm saying here, is that it's all to do with the way that light is bouncing off of things. There's lots of reflective surfaces. The surface is completely uneven.
Okay, but I mean, this is a very clear double shadow of the entire body of the lunar lander, and I just sent you an image with two different red lines on it that would indicate the kinds of reflections that would be possible off of the body of the lander. And I think that it pretty clearly indicates that there's no way to replicate this kind of double shadow that is seen in this image with just merely reflections off the body of the lander.
Okay.
Right, the one with the red lines.
Yeah, I'm just getting that up for everyone. Bear with me.
Excellent.
I wish I could find what I was looking for. Right. So here
you go. So what this is showing is that obviously here's an example of a light ray that creates a shadow that hits the surface of the moon, and then a additional light ray that bounces off the top of it. So I would stress that you find a way in which the light can reflect off of the body of the lander and create this kind of double shadow. I don't think that you can.
I mean, you're assuming that that's the angle that the sun was coming from there.
I think it's pretty evident in the image that that is the angle that the sun is coming from, at least in that image. Okay. I mean, you can see the shadow of the body on the surface. And so I think this pretty clearly indicates that there's no kind of reflection off of the body of the lander that could cause a double shadow. I think that the only way that a double shadow could be created is with a secondary light source. And again, this is so there are arguments about strange shadows on the moon, and those are caused by because people are not really good at thinking about how a camera sees things, and it can cause things that look like converging shadows, which are actually not converging shadows. So I completely avoided those examples because they're terrible arguments. But the image that I provided is not an image about converging or diverging shadows, but of a very clear double shadow that cannot be explained by reflections off of the body of the lander, like I'm demonstrating here.
I mean, again, you're still assuming that the only light source was the sun. You're going to be getting...
for a fact. We know for a fact that
there's also light that would have been reflecting from the Earth. There's so many kind of reflective surfaces on everything that they're using that could cause this extra shadow.
Okay.
I wish I had something specific for this, and I cannot find it, and it's really frustrating me.
But again, so I actually had an image. I don't have it anymore. I think I lost it. But I actually had an image that I created to counter that argument about light reflecting off of the Earth, and that's also a completely nonsensical response. The angles just don't match up, just like how the angles don't match up in this image. The whole point is that there's no way to position the Earth relative to the moon and the sun,
what I was looking
which
for.
a reflection off of the Earth would make a double shadow like that.
All right. Okay. So let me get the bit up that I need. If you bear with me one sec, I've found what I've
Excellent. You
looking
found
for.
it?
Yeah. Save
Good.
image. Thank you for Sarah for pointing me where that was. So, if we look at, come on, load into the program. Right. If we look at this, so this is the double shadow, right? It's double refraction of light between the lunar module window and the camera lens. There is no two shadows, as if they're caused by light sources. It's the same shadow captured twice in the photograph. Moon craters inside and outside the outer shadow don't line up. They wouldn't be affected if the double shadow of the lunar module would be caused by two light sources. In fact, they show the same double images like the lunar module. So it's actually just refraction from inside the lunar module that's causing that. The position of the double shadow very strongly. Note there, sorry, where's the bit that I was looking at? If we get this one from Apollo 12 to demonstrate what I'm saying.
I don't know.
This is from Apollo 12, and again you can see the double shadows, right? But there's no double shadows visible around the legs or anything. If there were two light sources, they should be visible as well. Reflected light can be seen in the pitch black area of the shadow cast by the lunar module. So both in there, the middle picture there, it shows that it is caused by the refraction of the light from inside the lunar module, which is similar to what you've shown me in this image. It's not actually two shadows.
I don't know. I just really don't find this convincing. I've actually seen this exact image before, and these supposed double craters. I mean, they seem similar. Surely they seem similar, but they definitely don't seem to be exact matches at all.
Well, you can see by looking at that there is two sets of images for where those craters are that match up, and the lines are showing that, and it's just kind of what's being caused by looking at it through the lunar module window.
I don't know. It seems like you're seeing patterns in noise.
I would say the same to you. I mean, the same thing can be recreated in many different ways.
Okay, so let's look at the blue image. So those dark blue images. So you can see very clearly to the right of it, there is a rock that's creating a shadow. I don't see that same rock on the lower blue image at all.
But that's because it's hidden in the darker area of the lunar module shadow.
And again, so let's look at the red one. So the red one looks like it's quite a bit spread out up and down. Doesn't seem. Again, this just seems like you're seeing.
Well, no, I mean if you look at the red one. Right, look at the line, the crater just to the left of the top red image, right? You can see how it's slightly bowed, like it's convex slightly.
Yeah.
And that's the same as if you look to the left of the lower red one. The shape of it is the same, showing that it's just that image repeated. And again, if you look at the orange one, how it fades out towards the left-hand side, it's the same as if you look at the lower orange one, it fades out towards the left-hand side of it. That is what's causing it, rather than it literally being two shadows.
Yeah, but so again, I'm looking at all of the other rocks, so I don't see any duplication. So these pebbles that are on the left-hand side, I don't see any duplication of those pebbles. Again, it just seems like these are just craters that look similar because, again, they're all at an oblique angle. And I think this is just people seeing patterns in noise, not really a strong refutation of what I'm saying.
Okay, so, I mean, to me, this shows that it's just a doubling of the image. Because I can see repeating things all over the place. And
Okay, so let's look at some of the rocks on the top left. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rocks, something like that, and you can sort of estimate about. So let's look at the rock that is just above the top purple line. So where is that rock repeated? Because I'm not seeing it anywhere.
Which so if you're looking at the ones next to the crosshair on the top left, yeah.
No. So above the purple line, that dark rock.
Ah, right. Okay. So then the repeat of that is, you can actually see it if you look on the blue line, just to the bottom right of it, that you can see where that rock is repeated.
I don't know. It seems kind of. I'm not convinced, to be honest. Like I said, this definitely there's going to be a bunch of craters. Because you're viewing these craters at an oblique angle, they're going to look similar. But okay, so what about the rocks? What about the rocks near the crosshairs? Where are those rocks repeated near the crosshairs at the top left?
Above. So as you come down diagonally to the right, you can see where they are on there again. So above the purple, to the left of the blue. I mean, all these patterns are repeated with
where exactly? I'm not seeing it, because
right.
So it looks like a kidney. The dark one.
So green.
So the dark one looks like a kidney bean shaped rock.
Right. So look at the top green line, and you follow it all the way along to the left, and you see the rock that's just by the crosshair on the left, right?
Yeah, the kidney bean shaped one. Yeah, the dark one.
Yeah, and again, if you follow the bottom green line and follow it along, you can see what appears to be a similar kidney bean shaped one in a roughly same position to where it is on the green one.
Wait, are you talking about that dark one?
Yeah,
that dark one right
there?
So
wait, but the one just above the purple.
But that's not the same distance. That's not the same distance or angle, though. Those are much more spread out.
But you have to remember that the light's being refracted and things are being altered slightly. But to me, that looks like you can see the same rock based on where the position of it based. If you line it up to the green, then it looks like it's a similar one there. And it even looks like it doesn't even belong on that image completely, if I'm looking at that. It's just repeated patterns.
I don't know. This is, like I said, this seems like seeing patterns and noise. I'm not very convinced.
So there is,
and I have seen this. I have seen this image before. You got this image off of Stack Overflow.
So, all right, okay. Now here's the best one. All right, if you look at see the bottom left crosshair, right?
Yes, bottom left.
You can see the line of rocks or shadows, whatever it is, just above it.
Like
kind
a zigzag.
Yeah. If you go down and to the right slightly, you can see that shape repeated perfectly. Which again, backs up my.
That does look similar. I'll give you that.
I'll give you that. That is my answer to this. I mean, there's two. Like I said originally, there's uneven surfaces. There is reflection, not just there's light not just coming from the sun, but there's reflections off of the Earth. There is reflections off of all the equipment. The lunar lander was covered in silver foil and stuff that reflected light in different ways.
Yeah, but again, look, you don't have. You only need one explanation. You kind of going through these other possible alternatives is not going to make your case stronger.
My point is that there's more than one reason why these double shadows could be there, other than just being a double shadow. A lot of the photos of you can see very clear two shadows of the astronauts and stuff. It all comes down to the fact that the surface of the moon was extremely uneven, and light was coming from different areas. But this one in particular is, as far as I'm concerned, just a doubling of the image and isn't actually a double shadow. And I think the smoking gun for that is the image on the bottom left by that crosshair that you can clearly see repeated just down to the right of it.
Yeah, it looks similar. I will give you that. I'll be honest about that. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, with the other ones, obviously the explanation would remain the same, but yeah, I'd have to do some more research on that one. But let's call that let's call that a wash. I suppose that could be explained by the refraction of the window.
Okay, right. So that's my answer for that one then. And then
so I gave you one other image. I gave you one other image with a bunch of numbers on it. Because this one is a very commonly repeated argument, and I think it deserves a debunking while I have some time on this show.
Let me just get that up. Okay. Right, you want to talk me through what's happening here?
Excellent. Okay, so do you think that the Nvidia recreation is a good argument for the moon landing?
What do you mean? Do I think it's a good argument?
Well, this is a very commonly repeated argument that Nvidia recreated the scene with was it Buzz? I think descending down the ladder. This one that's displayed here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not one that I would use myself, but I mean, it helps back everything up. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I want to lay this particular argument to rest because I think it is actually a terrible argument, and this is the reason why. So you can actually download the Nvidia the simulation that they created, and there's a really interesting. There's a bunch of settings in there, but there's one setting, I think it's called True Color setting, and so what it does is that it changes the shader. And it removes all of the particular lighting effects that are required to create an accurate scene, like the eyes see the scene. And what it shows is it shows the true color of the objects in the scene. And right here we can actually see that the albedo of the surface of the simulated moon is actually about 30%. And that albedo is much higher than the actual albedo of the moon. So now I pose the question: why did Nvidia decide to use such a high albedo when near over double? Because the average albedo of the moon is between 9% to 12%, and here we have an albedo of 30%. Why would Nvidia take the time to recreate a scene where they were stressing the accuracy of their recreation while completely failing on the most important part, which actually is the part that gives the most light to the scene? Actually, the light off of the astronaut that's there with the camera is almost entirely irrelevant. It's actually the majority of the light coming from the scene comes from the reflection off of the surface of the moon.
I mean, I can't speak for what Nvidia did to recreate it. It's not something that I would use as great evidence of the moon landing because it's a recreation. It's not actual evidence of the moon landing.
Well, I do think that scene is overly lit. I actually do think that is the hot spots on the heel. Those are typical talking points that moon landing hoaxers bring up, and I think they're very valid. And I think that this Nvidia argument is very commonly brought up, and I think it's an extremely poor argument because you yourself can download this Nvidia model yourself, and you can go into True Color model yourself, and you can replicate exactly what's there. Where the albedo of the surface of the moon is much higher than the actual albedo of the real moon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to deny that the the albedo in the Nvidia recreation does appear to be higher, but again, it's recreation. They're trying, I suppose, trying to make it look better is the only answer I could give there. But it's not an argument that I would use as evidence for the moon landing. It was just Nvidia showing off their technology with their new ray tracing abilities and stuff. To show that they could recreate these kind of things. But again, I wouldn't use it as evidence for or against the moon landing. It's just Nvidia showing off what their new chips can do, really. I don't really know how to respond to it in a way.
They made some claims to accuracy. They actually said that they actually explicitly said that they modeled the albedo of the moon as accurately as possible. But yet you can download their 3-dimensional model, and right there in the 3-dimensional model, which actually is not even open. You actually can't view the settings of the model yourself. It's completely closed off. So you have to play with these settings and enable true color mode. And true color mode betrays the fact that they used an albedo which was extremely much higher than anything that's reasonable. Same thing that happened with Mythbusters too. Mythbusters, they used, I believe, Portland cement, which has a very high albedo, and again, their recreation, I think, is also complete garbage.
I mean, again, they're recreations. They aren't actually evidence of the moon landing, and it's not something that I have ever looked into the details of. I mean, I've watched the videos and stuff because it's good examples of the ray tracing abilities of Nvidia's new tech.
Oh, but, yeah, and I mean, kudos to them for their technology.
Yeah, but I wouldn't personally use it as evidence for or against the moon landings. Okay. So I'd honestly like to move on from that, if that's okay.
Sure, that's perfectly fine.
Right, so let's talk about some evidence for the moon landings actually existing, and see if you can explain a lot of the things that have been done to kind of verify that the moon landings were real. We've talked about the different space agencies and the different orbiters and stuff that have kind of clarified where the moon landings were. The Selene photographs, the Chandrayaan-1, Chanj-2. There's so many different landers and stuff that have taken images of the actual landing sites that have then matched up with what we've said. Are they all faked as well? I mean, Russia and China have both independently verified where Apollo 11 took place. Are they making it up as well?
Well, so there's these images of these supposed tracks that you can see on the moon, and I don't think that it's very convincing, actually, because first of all, the tracks would actually not change the surface of the moon so much that they would be so visible in these images.
Why do you say that?
Because they're very surface level, and think about sand on a beach. When you're walking on a beach, it's only when the sand is wet that there is a significant color change between undisturbed sand and disturbed sand.
Could you tell me the kind of composition and makeup of the moon dust?
The regolith?
Yeah.
Of the regolith?
Yeah.
I think it's mostly quartz with some heavy metals like iron and such.
And
chromium.
One of the major properties of it is that it's sticky. The reason it's sticky is because of electromagnetism. There isn't as much shielding on the moon as there is on Earth, so the lunar soil actually gets charged by solar winds and stuff, and it makes it very sticky and electromagnetically sticky. And that's one of the reasons why the tracks and that were so distinct, is because the lunar lander was taking a lot of the stuff with it. The soil on the moon would stick to the lunar lander, the tires, the astronauts. That would make it look more defined. And then we have to go along with the fact that there is no wind and stuff on the moon to then alter the tracks afterwards. So the surface dust on the moon was easily stuck to the equipment and the astronauts, and in my mind that would kind of leave a more defined trail. So that's why I think they look so defined, is based around that, and like I said, and then again, because there isn't any wind or anything to change the tracks afterwards, and it all matches up like perfectly with what they said they were doing on the moon.
So the interesting thing is that this actually isn't the full image. So actually, when you go off to the right, where these supposed moon buggy tracks go, these moon buggy tracks just sort of disappear off to the right. This is actually a cropped image, and the full image that was released actually shows that these moon buggy tracks just completely disappear. And I mean, you've probably also heard of some of the arguments where there are specific images where the moon buggy just seems to have just been placed onto the surface of the moon, that there's no tracks visible of where it drove up. A couple of other things. So comparing the disruption of the lunar buggy tracks versus astronaut footpath, the astronaut footpath seems to have been much more disruptive to the surface when you would actually think that you would see the opposite, where the moon buggy tracks would be much more disruptive than the astronaut footpath. One other thing, if could you go back to that image really quick?
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. So if you zoom in onto the Challenger descent phase, you can actually pretty clearly see the footpads, and the footpads very much seem out of place. It seems like a very sloppy job that was done. And then I also sent you an image.
What do you mean out of place? I don't know what you mean by that.
They're not square.
Let me just zoom in on that, like you've asked. Bear me one sec. Oh, that's the wrong one. Give me 1 sec, and I'll get that zoomed in. I just need to create a new thing so I can zoom into it. All right, so there we go. And now,
And then I sent you an additional image. This was one that I took where there's another. Yeah, there you go. So, there's two very obvious foot pads, and they're quite off from square. And again, it doesn't seem like the other foot pads are visible, even though they should be visible, because they're actually in the light, while these foot pads that you're seeing are in the shadow, and yet for some reason they're very lit up. It's just a very strange image. Not very convincing to me.
I don't really see what you're seeing there, but
well, there's those two very obvious foot pads. Both of those foot pads are in the shadow, yet they're completely lit up for some reason. However that works. And then the other foot pads are not
uneven surfaces on the moon. As I've explained before, the moon is very uneven, and there's going to be reflection of light in different ways. But the
wait. Okay, you got to explain that one to me. So, how does a foot pad on the surface of the moon have light reflected onto it? I mean, would it be off the body? But then again, you can see that it's on both sides, so you would have to have light coming from both sides. It just doesn't seem to work out.
I mean, what do you mean when you say that the foot paths, the ones coming from it? Just by the arrow?
Pad with the P. No, to the right of the arrow, above and below. Those are the two foot pads.
Oh right,
and they're in shadow. Yeah, they're in shadow, and they're also not square with the descent stage. Because if you would expect if these foot pads that are in the shadow, that they're lit up, that you would expect all 4 foot pads to likely be lit up.
I mean, the foot pads are going to be raised compared to the rest of it. So they're more likely to catch light. Again, the important thing about this image is that it actually matches with what was told, and
supposedly. I doubt you've done detailed analysis of it.
Well, I mean, I've looked into enough to know that this matches with what they said that they did on the moon, which is why we bring up images like this, because it follows what their mission was. Just take 1 sec. Red's Rhetoric has come in. He may have some things to add. Reds, how you doing?
Hey, Reds.
Oh, he's gone away.
We'll hope to have him on.
Yeah, he is here. that he has to come in. See, I think he has some things to add. Reg, you there? We can't hear you if you are.
But as I was saying, the astronaut footpath, I mean, that literally, to me, it just looks like some guy went in with a darkening tool and just kind of drew a squiggly line. It does not seem very convincing.
Hey, Reds, how you doing?
Hey, Reds.
Yes, by the way, the reason why you guys can't hear me is because vMix is shit. So, am I actually coming through just fine now?
Yeah, you sound okay.
Yeah,
you sound better than you did yesterday. Yeah, better than you did yesterday or the other day.
Okay. All right. So, what was the thing about the footprints being damaging than the rover? I'm not sure what you mean by that.
They're much more clearly visible than the lunar buggy tracks, which, you know, the lunar buggy tracks put up a significant amount of dirt, and I think much more deeply disturbed the soil and the surface than the astronaut footpads. And like I was saying, I mean, like, gosh, it just looks like some guy went in there with like a darkening tool and just drew kind of a squiggle. It just does not seem convincing at all to me.
The reason for that is because the chevron-style wheels that were on the buggy were porous, so the lunar regolith went through it like a sieve. The footprints are the soles of the feet did not go through it like a sieve. They were not the same type of style. If you actually look at the moon buggy, you can actually see right through the tires. That's because, and so not only that, but the moon buggy could literally turn within its own radius. And so that means that sometimes it will drive right over its own tracks, and because it tossed up a whole bunch of lunar regolith because it went through it, it could cause some of those tracks to simply disappear altogether, get cut off, or better yet, not be just deep. It's not a 3-ton Chevy pickup with rubber tires.
I know that very well. Actually, one of the interesting anomalies with the lunar buggy is that it seems like in all of the missions where there was a lunar buggy, the driver's side back tire always collected a bunch of dust on it. It seemed as if there was an oil leak and that it was collecting dust after each one of these missions. And there's actually an argument that says that this was actually the exact same buggy that was just reused again and again across these missions, because it was always the driver's side back tire that had these oil stains that became very dusty.
Dust accumulation does not mean that the same buggy was used, and it could also be that that's simply the drive wheel of the moon buggy.
Sure, but again, it just seems to be so unlikely that the same wheel across all of these supposedly different buggies would have the exact same problem where there was an oil leak that would collect dust. I think it's actually really good evidence to say that they just reused the same buggy from mission to mission when they were faking it.
I disagree. It could be also the case that the moon buggy is of the same design between mission and mission. That's why you see that the same type. But that's why you see the same type of characteristic, because guess what? If that is the drive wheel, then naturally that drive wheel is going to cause certain characteristics to be unique to that one drive wheel.
I mean, you also know how they actually duct taped a map, because one of the flaps, the dust flaps, actually broke off, and so they just attached a map to act as a kind of a dust guard, and that this same map on this same wheel is seen from mission to mission. It's really funny.
I disagree. That's seen from mission to mission.
No, it's a fact. You can look this up yourself. I'm not gonna pull it up at this point, but they, like I said, it's a well-known fact that the I think it was on the back wheel on the passenger side, the dust shield broke off, and that they just slapped on a map with some duct tape, and that you can see this exact map that's been duct taped onto this dust guard from mission to mission, which is indicative that they just reused the same buggy from mission to mission.
And what mission was that? Because I'm looking at
The
all the
later
moon buggy. So I'm looking at all the moon buggy photos between
All
Apollo
of them?
15 and Apollo. Yeah, I'm looking at pictures from the moon buggy from Apollo 15. So would I find the exact same moon buggy types for all the other Apollo missions? I mean, in terms of that one fender.
Yeah, here you go. So here's an image of the oh, actually, oh, interesting. NASA even on their official website talks about this. This is handy. Here you go. One sec, I'm gonna send that to you. And again, so you see this duct taped map from one mission to the other. It's pretty funny.
Let's talk.
Or at
So
least on the Apollo 17 mission, which yeah, it's a pretty shoddy job.
So
the Apollo 17, you're talking about a fender repair. Okay, so you're telling me that
Yeah.
same exact fender repair is seen throughout all the missions.
No, so if I remember correctly, the fender broke on the Apollo 16 mission and then was repaired, and that map was duct taped onto the 17th mission, and I think that's mild evidence that the same buggy was reused. Actually, there's even an argument that you can see the wear and tear of these props that were used from mission to mission. Yeah, there you go. Very nice.
Which is interesting because I'm looking at the rover from Apollo 17 and I don't see that exact same fender repair.
It is from Apollo 17, surely. Anyway,
Okay, so
it's a
are you
minor
saying that they're
point.
okay, right.
It's a minor point.
So anyway, your evidence that the corroborating evidence from other people seems pretty weak to me. I mean, this all matches up with what they told us that they did. I mean, along with that, there's so much third-party evidence that we actually went to the moon, including schools actually being involved in tracking, what was going on.
Okay, but no one person, no one agency tracked the entire any one of the missions. So yes, I agree. So my view is that there was a rocket that went to the moon, likely left some things on the moon. I just have extreme doubts that there were people on that rocket.
Right. So we did go to the moon, but not with people.
Well, so the Russians sent probes to the moon. The thing is that electronics are much more hardy to the kinds of environments that are in outer space, and so this is kind of the argument that I like to run with this. What do you think is more likely? Do you think it's more likely that we sent a rocket to the moon, or do you think it's more likely that we sent a rocket to the moon with people on it, with life support that worked, and they came back alive? Which one's more likely?
Given everything I know, the second one.
Yeah, both
Wait,
are perfectly likely.
You know that the conjunction of non-unitary probabilities is always going to be lower than any of the probabilities that are in the conjunction, right?
When you take everything into account, you have to follow Occam's razor. All right, and Occam's razor states that which requires the least amount of assumptions is the one that you should go with. And I'm sorry, astronauts actually going to the moon actually require the least amount of assumptions.
You're just claiming that. Okay, so maybe Reds,
I can
respond.
I can demonstrate that. I can demonstrate that. Don't just make a claim and then run away with it.
Yeah, Reds do.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can at all. So again,
Reds,
Reds,
call me out, challenge me to it.
Reds, is that something you can do now, or would you need time for that?
Oh no, I can do it right now, but I just want to make the claim one more time that I can't before I do it.
just go ahead and try.
All right.
You don't want to make the claim again? You seem fairly confident.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. Go ahead.
That floor's yours,
Perfect.
Reds.
Then say it again.
Come on, just
I'm
say
waiting.
it, Ace.
Thank you. Okay. So the fact is that we weren't the only one that was looking at this, okay? Not only was there communications coming from the moon, but there was also communications coming from the rocket that was going to the moon. Human audible conversations. Not only that, but when you go and look at the Nixon phone call, you can actually hear an echo that was delayed by a certain amount of time that would place them a very far distance away. Like, oh, I don't know, the distance to the moon. There was literally an echo within the astronauts' headsets on the Nixon phone call. Not only that, but we didn't actually have the equipment back then to remotely gather the amount of material that we were actually able to gather from the moon missions. It actually required human
you want to
work
go one
to
point
make
at a
that
time,
happen.
or are you going to give Gallo? Do you want to go 1 point at a time?
All right, sure. Address the Nixon phone call thing.
Yeah, okay. Oh, wow. They added a delay to the signal. That's like basic processing.
They added a delay to the signal.
Yeah, you don't think that it's easy to repeat a signal with a slight delay? Like,
To know
on.
exactly what's going to be said ahead of time? You think that's possible? Apparently,
no.
telepathy is another trick in NASA's bag of tricks.
No. What I'm saying is that it's very easy. I mean, it's called reverb. It's a very basic signal operation or operation.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, can I step in?
So
real quick?
again,
I mean, you don't. I
Just
mean,
to
you
speak
could
on
build
that.
an analog circuit to do that. I mean, I've even built analog circuits very similar to that myself.
But Team Skeptic wants to say something on that. Go ahead, Team.
I just want to make clear what he's talking about. It's not impossible to add a delay to a signal. It's simply, what he's saying is you just run the signal through an analog circuit and it adds time to it, milliseconds at a time. So you do it enough times and you can add a delay to it. And it's not called reverb. That's what Ace called it. It's not called reverb. That's definitely not what it is.
Well,
but I still
reverb's
agree
one
with
form.
Reds that
Yeah.
that's saying that there's somebody that has, well, reverb is going to add like an echo to it, like when I'm talking it'll
Yeah, a
sound like
delayed
I'm
echo.
talking in a larger room. No, it'll sound like I'm talking in a larger room, so you'll hear the
Okay,
the signal
I think you
bouncing
may be
off the walls
technically
and coming back.
That's fair.
Yeah,
You may
the
be technically
delay
right.
is what you're talking about. You're talking about an analog delay, which they do have the ability to do, but I still agree with Reds that's making an assumption that they did it. It's plausible, but it's still making an assumption.
Okay, but it's
instead
more
of just saying that it was a
plausible
natural
to
phone
create
call or
a
a natural
very
radio signal.
Yeah, but it's more plausible to create a very simple analog circuit than the crazy life support system that would be required to send people to the moon. Like, I mean, come
What
on,
makes it
one's
crazy?
quite a bit simpler than the other.
what makes it crazy? What honestly makes it what makes it crazy?
Well, humans are very delicate creatures, and there are many
I'll give you that.
conditions that need to be very precisely met, versus a very simple analog circuit that just adds an echo.
The life support systems that were on Apollo are just such that those very sensitive bags of Jello could actually survive. What's so complicated about this?
Okay, but that goes back to the argument that I was making. So which one is more likely? Again, we're talking just a priori probabilities here. Which one's more likely? Because again, there's a shared probability. They both have a rocket, right? So what's more likely? A rocket going to the moon, or a rocket going to the moon with people on it, with a working life support system, and they survive? Which,
Well,
come on,
People
conjunction.
on a rocket with working life support and
Yeah,
they actually
yeah.
survive on the way back.
There's a bit. There's a bit more.
No, look.
Wait. Guys, there's
We need a
Ace,
priori.
one sec.
Look.
There's a bit more to it than just that. It's not just that there was people in the rocket and they went there and came back. It's that they went there. They did a bunch of experiments. They communicated with Earth whilst they were there.
Well, that's
and
kind of irrelevant
then
to my
they
hypothetical.
came. Well, it's not, because you have to take these things into account, because it's not just the shared probability of there's a rocket in both situations. Therefore, which is more likely, the rocket having people or the rocket on its own? It's the fact that they then went to the moon, they landed, people got out, they did experiments, they took images, they brought back material. You know, there's all these things that have to be added into that thought.
Okay, but the thing is that doing experiments and taking images don't increase the probability of failure of the mission. I'm talking about things that increase the probability of failure of the mission. And so having a rocket go to the moon and back has a specific probability of failure.
Yeah.
Having people on board, well, I mean, that's kind of just setting up the probability for them surviving, which has a specific probability of failure. So again, the conjunction of probabilities will always be less than any of the individual probabilities. This is just a statistical fact.
Okay, yeah, but you're missing a lot of the variables within the statistics, because you have to think what the actual missions were. The mission was to go to the moon to do experiments. So if you're talking about what would be more probable in failure, it would be sending it without people and having to rely on some kind of automation for them to do actually what they went to the moon to do.
Which the Russians did. The Russians left retroreflectors on the moon completely automatic. It's not difficult technology. I mean, this was basically just a box with wheels on it with a lid that opened up. It's a very simple technology. Unlike,
but it was they didn't just go there to do. They didn't just go there to put retroreflectors though.
I know, but that's irrelevant to the hypothetical.
Not really, because you're talking about the failure of the mission. You have to take into account what the mission actually was, and the mission was to get people to the moon to do experiments.
Well, okay. So my view, this is kind of deviating. We'll have to come back to this after. I mean, I'm going to deviate just really quickly. So my view on the moon missions was that it was actually a PR campaign to increase public support for funding missile research. I don't think that there was any humanitarian aspect to the moon landings. I think it was solely a public relations campaign to make it more palatable to the American public to increase funding for warheads and rockets and missiles. I don't think that there is any humanitarian aspect to any part of the moon missions. But
in my view,
that aside,
the United States was simply in a dick measuring contest with Russia, and we wanted to prove that our dick was bigger.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the moon landings were at the end of the day. It was a dick measuring contest.
It was a dick measuring contest.
Russians got Sputnik into space first. Russians sent a man up to space first. But, America needed to do something.
I'm the United States.
Yeah.
I'm the United States. Look at the size of my schlong.
The Russians were doing the same thing. Them sending a man up into space and up into low Earth orbit, again, was just, to me, how I understand it, a PR campaign for them to increase their funding for rocket research, to make it more palatable that they're creating warheads and they're creating rockets. And, these things are not humanitarian efforts. These things are implements of war.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and bring something up that seems to be missing here.
I just wanted to address one point that he made about the saying how the Russians put a reflector there as well as the Americans, right? So this was the Russian one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, totally automated, but this is the American one. Right?
Supposedly the American one.
Well, you have to say supposedly, but if you're taking this on base that these images are real, then I don't think there's a way that this one could have been deployed in an automatic fashion.
Of course.
The same way as the Russian one, which was clearly designed for that purpose.
Yes, of course. I'm just saying that retroreflectors existing at these particular sites, I don't think is any evidence for humans ever being on those sites, because the Russians had the technology to automatically deploy a retroreflector. I don't think that a retroreflector existing at these particular sites on the moon is actually evidence that humans went there, because the Russians had technology to enable an automatic deployment of a retroreflector.
Yeah, but it is really
actually,
good
let's talk about why the Russians.
Wait, let Reds finish his. What were you saying there, Reds? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Reds.
What I was saying is that there's actually two things I want to say. It depends on. It actually is very good evidence when you consider the type of retroreflector, the type that cannot be automatically deployed. which was the only kind that was actually designed for the mission. Surprise, surprise. But there's also another thing, which is
this is all suppositions.
And what exactly are you doing exactly? But anyway, when it comes
Let
Reds finish.
Let me finish. So now, when you talk about the Saturn V and all of these things having to go right and stuff like that, the Saturn V had a shit ton of money thrown at it because once again we were in a dick measuring with the Russians. And when you have a shit ton of money, you can afford certain batches of redundancy and reliability to go in. That's exactly why the ascent engines that were to bring the astronauts back to the orbiter that was going around the moon, the command module, was using hypergolics so that they could increase the reliability of the engine. Reliability was literally within the design. When you look at more complicated systems, like, for example, Falcon 9, Atlas, Delta, they all have some sort of failure to their name in some aspect. I remember once the Atlas V, the second stage, almost didn't make it to orbit because of a failure there. But that's because they didn't have a lot of... yes, it is, and I'm going to tell you how. The reason why we can look at Apollo and not be surprised at the reliability was because it had the funding to better ensure that reliability would be a thing. Reliability was literally within the design of the entire mission. So that's why it's not exact far-fetched to think that astronauts could go there with life support and make it back in one piece.
Okay, so on Apollo 13, which is the mission that supposedly failed, they had an oxygen tank explosion that set them pretty wildly off course. And so all of these courses were pre-programmed. And supposedly, these astronauts were able to manually intervene, control the rapid spinning and turning of the craft, and then set themselves back on course exactly as intended. I mean, it just seems beyond belief, to be honest.
Well, that's an argument from incredulity because the engineering and the maths for it is perfectly explainable.
So, okay, I agree that Newtonian physics perfectly explains orbital mechanics and that kind of stuff. But the point is that these systems were not on-the-fly reprogrammable. These had hard-coded instructions placed in them. You could not just beam up a new set of instructions. And even if you could beam up a set of instructions, how could you possibly do all these on-the-fly calculations for something that's could not be measured very accurately? Again, it just seems like...
What do you think astronauts spent many years training to do? To do calculations like that on the fly so that they could make adjustments and stuff that they needed to. All the...
It wasn't just them.
It wasn't just...
It wasn't just them.
Okay, do you want to elaborate on that, Reds?
Yeah, it wasn't just the astronauts doing the calculations. In fact, they had an entire team of really smart people on the ground to help them out.
Yeah. But assuming, say, the Apollo program lost contact with Earth and they had to do it all on their own, the astronauts were trained to be able to make those calculations on the fly and make the adjustments to be able to get back. It's as simple as that. They were the maths and the physics works out, and the fact that the astronauts were some of the smartest people that have ever existed.
I agree. Yes, I agree that the maths works. I've no doubt that orbital mechanics is a possibility and can be very accurately predicted. I mean, obviously, we're able to predict the motions of the celestial bodies using the exact kind of mathematics that controlled these rockets. The point that I'm making with Apollo 13 is that there was a completely unknown variable and an unknown deviation from the pre-programmed course, and yet somehow with this massive deviation from the pre-programmed course, the astronauts were able to re-enter into this particular flight trajectory. And you know how accurate this stuff has to be, how precise. Otherwise it would burn up and on re-entry. or there's all sorts of variables, and yet they were able to like do all of the calculus either in their heads or on the ground.
How many Apollo missions were there? How many Apollo missions were there? Like,
you mean the ones that?
Well, let's say how many Apollo missions were there before they sent anything to the moon?
It was 10, I think. Right?
Okay, and why did they have those missions before sending it to the moon?
They were dress rehearsals.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why all these things they went as expected, because they tested and planned and done dress rehearsals of all these things in advance. So they knew what problems would arise and how they would, correct for these things. I mean, not everything went exactly to plan. There was a lot of problems on pretty much every single Apollo mission that they had to fix on the fly. But the fact that they had done these tests and astronauts and people on the ground had spent so long training to do what they did is just an endorsement of how well they trained, really, that they actually got back.
Also, there's something else that needs to be said, and I'm going to bring up a craft that may seem irrelevant to this discussion, but I'm going to bring it up anyway, and you'll see how it's relevant in a moment. New Horizons. New Horizons was launched to do a flyby of Pluto. However, the entire track was not planned entirely in advance. It had course corrections along the way. Same thing with Apollo. It can have course corrections along the way. So even though there is a deviation, you can course correct your way through it to eventually hit your desired target. And in fact, it wasn't even in the original mission plan to do a gravity slingshot by Jupiter, but that shaved off 2 years off its mission. And that was done on the fly. The same way that those maneuvers can be done on the fly to adjust your orbit because of whatever deviation happens because of just an explosion or solar pressure or whatever the case may be, you can do the same thing with a lunar module.
But again, I mean, you're comparing technologies that are decades apart. I don't think that's a very fair comparison. And again, these corrections were all done supposedly manually, and the calculations were all done on paper and pencil.
Yeah.
Like I said, it just seems so unlikely. But so I wanted to go back a little bit.
Ace, I just want you to admit that what you're doing there is an argument from incredulity. It seems very unlikely, therefore it's false. That's
no. I'm not saying it's false. I just don't find it personally convincing. I'm not saying
and can I interject too?
That's a moot point.
So yes, team.
Conclusion. I'm just saying I'm not personally convinced.
Okay,
so it's not an argument from incredulity.
I think team wanted to add something there.
Being incredulous.
All right, go ahead, team.
Yeah. So when they did the calculations for Apollo 13 on the fly, they weren't exact because there was always they always knew that there was a chance that their calculations weren't right or that something wasn't going to happen right, and it was going to have to be a continuous like program moving forward to get them back home. So all they had was a rough approximation of whether it was going to work or not, and that's what they worked off of. Fortunately, their math was good enough to take the data that they had to form the rough approximation and get them to within percentage points of error that they actually were able to bring them back home. So I can see where both sides are coming from, but I'm going to say it's not impossible for them to make those corrections on the fly to get them close enough to make better corrections as they got closer to the Earth.
Okay.
All right.
There was one thing that I wanted to bring up as quite strong evidence that we actually had men on the moon. Apollo 10 was the one that orbited the moon before they brought people home, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you know what was a big difference between the astronauts in Apollo 10 and Apollo 11?
Tell me.
Big difference was every single one of the Apollo 11 astronauts had severe flu-like symptoms when they got back, whereas none of the Apollo 10 ones did. The reason for that is they were allergic to the lunar dust, basically. The lunar dust it's literally called lunar sickness. The lunar dust literally makes you ill, gives you incredible allergy responses, that is very much like flu symptoms. And every single one, well, sorry, the Apollo 11 astronauts that landed on the moon, they had those symptoms. Yet the Apollo 10 astronauts didn't have those symptoms. So, and it wasn't just the Apollo 11 astronauts, it was all of the astronauts that landed on the moon had these symptoms because they couldn't stop the dust coming back into the lunar modules because it was electromagnetically charged. It stuck to their spacesuit. Mm-hmm. So even when they were coming back in and not in their spacesuit and everything, the dust came in with them. And it made it very hard for them to actually carry on with what they were doing. So for me, that is very strong evidence that something else happened with the Apollo 11 astronauts and subsequent than before.
All right. I mean, sure. I don't find it very convincing. Like I said, I think that the photographic evidence, especially the GIF that I provided, which shows very clearly a stage floor leading up to a backdrop, is much more convincing evidence than some flu symptoms. But anyway, I wanted to go back to the Russians really quick. So I know another pro-moon argument is very common,
just
like
dismissing that. Never mind.
Like I said, I don't know what to respond to.
I mean, it's
like
just evidence that they actually did something different to Apollo 10, and you know, the fact that all of the astronauts that went on the moon had those symptoms is it's indicative of something else happening other than them just being in a spacecraft.
Yeah, but again, my images, especially the one with the parallax, I think is indicative that it was taken on a soundstage, and I think that's much more convincing evidence than some flu symptoms.
See, but with that, I just seriously disagree that it was taken on a soundstage. Like I said, one of the images is completely altered for aesthetic reasons, and you can even look at the Photoshop files and find out why it was done and stuff. But yeah,
let's not rehash. So back to the to the Russians. So I'm actually kind of surprised that we talked about the Russians for a little bit and that this point wasn't brought up. Everybody says, "Oh, why didn't the Russians squeal?" If the Russians knew that it was fake, why didn't they tell everybody about it? And so I think that if I was in the Russian government and I knew for a fact that the moon landing was a hoax, I don't think that I would be personally motivated to publicly release that information. I actually think that I would be much more motivated to use that information to secretly blackmail representatives in the U.S. government. So I don't think that's a very
speculation. And
sure. Okay,
I would have to seriously disagree because the Cold War, any slight reason for the Russians to get a one-up on America, they would have taken it. They weren't, I mean, I'm not saying there wasn't spies and everything, but they weren't subtle about what was going on. Russia wanted to beat America. Russia wanted to be better than America. So if Russia could have conclusively proven that the moon landings didn't happen as America said, then they would have said that straight up. I'm just speculating on that. But again, it's just coming off of your speculation.
Yeah, but what's a bigger one up? Just going out and publicly exclaiming that it's fake, or using that information for blackmailing purposes? I think that blackmailing the U.S. government
I would say that straight up proving that America were lying about something would have been such a massive blow to the USA on the international stage that if that was the option, Russia would have fucking taken it.
Okay, but anyway, you're right. This is a more speculative argument. I guess we just have to agree to disagree. I think the blackmailing option is a much more powerful option than just telling the public about it. But
they literally called us fascists when they were putting up the Berlin Wall. I don't think there was any love lost between us at all.
I honestly think that they would have taken the opportunity to call America out for being fake, but like you said, that it is purely speculative. Right, so let's look at some other evidence for the fact that the moon landings did happen. Where's my?
Can I say something? Can I say something on the heels of that?
Yeah.
So let's say we have all these entities, and they know for a fact. I'm going to go to another superpower in this, which is China. China has their own lunar reconnaissance orbiter clone, whatever you want to call it. They've also taken pictures of the site and stuff like that. So if they were to blow the whistle on this then yeah, that could be a position for blackmailing, for example, blackmailing us for that. When does the blackmail start? Because I'm pretty sure I haven't heard Trump stop bitching about China for the entire term of his presidency. If China is going to use that as a blackmail, then they're not doing a very good job.
Well, I'm talking mostly about the Russians. I mean, I think that it's, at this point, it's likely even in China's interest to keep up the scam, right? I mean, because if they keep up the scam, yes, let me explain. Because if they keep up the whole idea that, oh, they have all these technologies that it's a better way to extract more money from the populace rather than exposing the hoax and then losing all that money that could be potentially extracted from the populace.
We're constantly going against them at every turn.
No, I know, but I'm saying that it would be in China's interest that if they're interested in extracting more money for more projects, that it wouldn't be in their best interest to expose the hoax, but to play into the hoax to fund these particular projects, including Black Ops projects.
No, my thing is that if they had this beef on us, might want to start using it because they sure haven't done that yet, given the way we've been treating them. I mean, hell, we dump our garbage on their shoreline. We literally ship them tankers of our trash and say, you deal with it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, but anyway, so you got more evidence?
Right, so I wanted to point out the fact that differences in the way that the broadcast was done to kind of standard television and stuff, and movies and everything. So with video at the time, broadcast to a television receiver, standard motion picture film records images at 24 frames per second. Well, broadcast television was typically either 25 or 30 frames, depending on where you were in the world. If you go along with the idea that the moon landings were taped in TV studio, then we would expect them to have been 30 frames a second, which was the television standard at the time, except that the moon landings were recorded in 10 frames per second in a slow scan television with a special camera. So why that discrepancy?
I don't know. Doesn't seem like very convincing evidence.
Okay, so then there's the fact that there is many different film directors and stuff that have clearly said that with the technology stuff at the time, it would have actually been cost a lot more or near enough impossible to fake the moon landings and have it look real at that time. Like the literal technology to do it didn't exist.
So you don't think that back projection technology and setting up a soundstage or two is...
But it was a lot more than just that.
You think that was more expensive and more difficult than creating the rocket, the life support system, the suits that would work? I mean, come on. It's obviously much more simple to create a...
There was a director, S.G. Collins, that made the statement that Apollo 11 couldn't be faked because it was impossible. Note the use of the word impossible and not the use of the word difficult. Impossible. And he goes into the technology at the time and says that in order to achieve the look of Apollo 11, in order for it to be what Apollo 11 actually is, you would have to invent technologies that didn't exist at that time.
Oh, like light lasers and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I've heard that all. That's just total nonsense.
The technology that says you, but I disagree. The technology that was on the rocket that made the rocket work was technology that was actually available at the time. Like the technology needed to fake the moon landings literally didn't exist.
No.
Again,
to back that up,
you're just speculating.
We're not speculating because at the time of broadcast...
No, you are. You're speculating on the technology that would be required. I mean, people, like this Collins guy, they say, oh, to have the parallel rays of light, you need these like white lasers and like arrays of white lasers. I mean, that's That's completely unnecessary. Again,
Well,
I think that
it's more simple than that. It's things like, you know, the astronauts look like they're moving in slow motion, right, because of the low gravity. Now, the only way to achieve that kind of effect is with a process called overcranking, where you record a higher frame rate than you actually want it to. And at the time of broadcast, magnetic disc recorders capable of storing slow motion footage could only capture 30 seconds in total for a playback of 90 seconds of slow motion footage if it's like reduced 2 times. So to capture 143 minutes in slow motion, you'd need to record and store 47 minutes of live action footage like that, which simply wasn't possible with the technology of the time.
It was called the Apex HS100 magnetic disc recorder, which can record up to 30 seconds in real time, which would then play back in 90 seconds of broadcast time. Yeah. But that recorder would, of course, have to be reset, and there would, of course, be a cut in the footage. And when people were watching this live, there was no cut in the footage. And if people want to say that it was pre-recorded, well, in order to do that, you would also need to stitch film together, and there was, again, no cut within the broadcast.
Yeah. So it was 143 minutes of it was 143 minutes of uninterrupted footage that would have required 3 times as long as that to actually been recorded.
But you're talking about commercially available technologies versus NASA that had the equivalent of billions of dollars to spend on this project. So, I mean, comparing commercially available technologies with
I'm going to say
technologies that could be
I'm going to say that's a straw man, because NASA now and always has had to, being the fact that they're a government agency, they have to spell out exactly where all the funding is going. So you just saying, well, they had millions of dollars so they could have had secret equipment, isn't the case, because you can trace every single penny that NASA received and spended on every single mission they've ever done.
A really big claim.
Well, they're a government agency. They have to do these things.
Let me ask you
then
this.
why do black projects exist?
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. If I'm in Rome during the time of Caligula, how much money would I have to spend to get an iPhone 8?
Well, yeah, obviously the technology isn't even available at the time.
Exactly. So NASA having all this money, buying technology that didn't exist, is a lot like me saying that if I spent enough, I could get an iPhone 8 without Rome.
Technology. You're comparing Iron Age technology to Space Age technology. Like, this is completely insane.
But you're saying that NASA have technology which would have been at least 30 years ahead of what everyone else had at the time. And to develop that
which
kind
is
of...
actually pretty close to the kind of technologies that these people operate with, is about 20 to 30 years ahead of commercial technologies. Yes.
I don't remember them having touch screens in the space shuttle. That's cool.
No, definitely not. No, NASA, the technology that NASA worked with, the reason they had a Hasselblad physical camera was because that was kind of the apex of the technology at the time. If they were using secret technology, then they wouldn't have used a handheld camera that anyone could have got hold of. It doesn't make sense to say, well, they must have had secret advanced technology way above the storage capacity and technological abilities of anyone else in the world.
So on that point, I think if you look at the technology that was supposedly on the moon during these live broadcasts, just compare the kinds of technologies that are required to broadcast live television today by newscasting companies versus the claimed antennas and recording equipment that was used for the live broadcasts on the moon landing, and the discrepancy is so large, it's astounding.
Can you tell me Can you tell me the exact technology they used to do the broadcast?
So, I mean, not off the top of my head. It's been a while since I looked into it. But the whole point is that all of this had to be battery powered, first of all, which and sending these signals during the live broadcast requires an enormous amount of energy. and requires very specialized antennas, which, again, the antennas that they had compared to the antennas that are required to broadcast news station stories today are just incomparable. And again, all of this had to be battery powered, every single last bit. Yes.
I mean, that was the antenna that they used.
Yes.
Save image. Here was the cameras that we used.
And so you're arguing that the life, right? And so you're arguing that the life support systems, these massive antennas, the buggy, all of this was battery powered. You know, lead acid batteries, just a big old bank of lead acid batteries powered all this stuff. It just boggles the mind.
I mean, again, that's just an argument from incredulity, and I mean, I'm pretty sure there were solar panels and stuff as well.
Well, no, there were not solar panels. And so the other thing is that actually we can just look at the number of photos that were taken. So if we actually look, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of photos that were taken supposedly on the moon. And if we were to calculate the rate of photos that were taken, it would be something like 2-3 photos a minute for every minute on the moon. And this is not including including all of the time required to set up, all of the equipment.
Let me stop you there. And it's a simple argument with that, okay? They weren't taking pictures constantly, right? Now, when they got to a point they would want to take a picture, they would have got out the camera and gone click, 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 click. And there's a whole bunch of photos in that little short time. And that's what they were doing when they were taking photos. They weren't just taking one, moving somewhere else to take another one, moving somewhere else to take another one. There were periods where they were probably taking 10, 20, 30, 40 pictures of pretty much the same thing in one go.
Yeah, but the photographic record doesn't actually back up what you're saying. A lot of these images were completely individualized, were set up from different views. And again, just the massive amount of photos that were taken, it just, again, the rate of photos that they would have to take, as well as set up all the experiments, set up all the equipment, it just seems completely unreasonable how many photos they actually took and how many of them survived, I suppose.
It's not unreasonable. Just while you were talking, I already took about 30 photos. I guess I'm good for the next few hours.
Yeah. I would like to point out.
And then all the time that it takes
one sec.
Film,
yeah, I would also
and to put in new film and to.
One second.
Can you take? Wait. So could you take say 1,200 photos in the span of only a few hours, while at the same time setting up scientific equipment, taking out the buggy, de-suiting?
Yeah. Why do you think there was more than one person there?
Can I answer that? Can I answer that?
Go ahead.
Well, hold on. Can I answer that? Because I have a plausible example of how this happens on Earth. Okay, any kind of major wedding requires a camera crew to go out, set up, take a couple of hundred pictures, tear down, put it all back up, and get it back to the shop, and that's all done in just a couple of hours during a wedding. So, I mean, it's not impossible to think that somebody was up there taking large amounts of photos at short periods of time, covering different angles of significant features of the moon.
Okay, but like I said, because that's all they're doing, taking photos during those hours. Again, they weren't just supposedly taking photos. They were de-suiting and re-suiting. They were taking experimental measurements, you know, from the rocks and that kind of stuff. They were setting up scientific equipment. They were riding around on the buggy. They were deploying the buggy. They were deploying the antennas. There was all this other additional things that they were doing, not just taking photos the entire time. And the massive number of photos just doesn't line up with the amount of time that they had.
Yeah, but life isn't about averages. That's the thing. You're looking at the average and thinking that that's going to be blanket across the whole thing. No, there will be certain instances where they're taking a spurt of a massive number of photos, a spurt where they're taking a massive number of photos, maybe 1 or 2 photos here, maybe another massive set of photos, with time in between to actually do experimentation, observations, ride around on the buggy or whatever. I mean, hell, if we were to
Okay,
actually
except that
replicate,
except that the photographic record doesn't back up this whole notion that they were taking massive spurts of photos. Actually,
It
the
really
majority of the
does.
photos that were taken, the majority of the
It-
photos that were taken were individual shots that were framed. I mean, the only time that they actually took real spurts of photos is when they were creating dramas.
that is 100% incorrect because the photographic record actually shows them taking breaks in between. Not all the photos are perfectly framed and perfectly shot. Some of them are fucking sideways.
There we go.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, there's a massive number of photos out there, but what you're talking about is you're doing the fallacy of the average and applying it to the whole. It doesn't work
No,
like
I'm
that.
not. No, I'm not. I'm
Yeah, you
very
are.
well aware that there was an uneven distribution of photos that were supposedly taken. Because again, like I was saying, they set up the experiments. They were deploying the buggy. I'm not saying that. I'm not making the average fallacy because again, I'm not saying that they took one photo at a time at a specific rate. That's not the argument that I'm making. You're making a straw man of my argument.
Well,
I've actually just
I'm
done
gonna
the.
say that
I've just done the maths.
I'm going to say that's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I've just done the maths, and based on the amount of time that Apollo spent on the moon and the amount of photos that were taken, it would have equated to 1.19 photos per minute, or one every 50 seconds. I don't see that being an issue.
Wait.
Yeah,
So
no.
again, is this during EVAs?
Yeah.
Because again, the majority of the photos were taken during EVAs. So you're
Yeah.
calculating based on
Yeah, the 151
EVA.
minutes that Armstrong was, because Armstrong was the only one that took the photos. Because
Well, okay, so
there
you're
was
only wait. So you're only talking Apollo 11. Can you do the calculations for Apollo 17? Because there were massively more photos taken in the later missions than in the early missions.
right. So how many photos? I know 1, 3, 2, 4 minutes. How many photos were taken on Apollo 17?
I think it was something like 1,200 photos or something on Apollo 17.
How many photos?
Like an enormous amount of photos, like 1,200.
Oh, Apollo 17 image library. That's nice. It doesn't tell me how many there is there.
Yeah, maybe there's a.
So they spent a lot longer in EVA on Apollo 17. 151 minutes in Apollo 11 versus 1,324 minutes in Apollo 17. I'm just trying to get the numbers for how many photos were actually taken on Apollo 17.
And remember, again, they weren't spending the entire time just taking photos. The majority of the time was doing experiments, deploying. I mean, I'm not going to repeat myself.
Yeah, I know. I can't find the actual.
So yeah, I'm not
number.
making it a fallacy of the averages. Of course, the photos had an uneven distribution over time.
Then that uneven
they were-
distribution explains how this could be possible. So I find this to be one of the weakest arguments thus far.
Okay, well, how about you respond to my parallax argument? So, Craig, your name's Craig, right?
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So Craig, I don't think responded very well to my argument with the parallax. He said something about it's photoshopped and that, he doesn't see the line that I'm talking about, which is an argument from ignorance anyway.
I don't think.
So
know
what?
argument from
I mean,
ignorance
you
is.
likely saw the evidence from the earlier stream, or do those need to be brought back up again?
I have no idea what you're talking about, so it probably needs to be brought back up.
All right.
By the way, I
okay.
don't think you know what an argument from ignorance is.
No. Right, Reds. Let me show you the.
I do know. I could give you the definition right now.
Please do.
It's I don't know, therefore it's wrong.
Yeah, but I
That's the
didn't
argument for me.
say I don't know. I said I don't see what you see. That's very different.
Right? Yeah. Seeing is
I
the form of knowledge.
i.e. not an argument from ignorance. I'm glad we were able to settle this. I'm
Okay,
glad we had
so-
this conversation.
Yeah. Here.
Right, Ace, do you want to talk Reds through what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that very clearly you can see. So this mountain in the background is supposedly 6 kilometers away. That dark crater, that white crater too, is about 6 kilometers away in the background. And I think that you can very clearly see from this image that there is actually just a stage floor leading up to a backdrop, and that mountain is not 6 kilometers away, but that it is actually just a backdrop. And there's that line. So what's your response, Reds?
what did you use to say that, or what measurements did you make to find out that this amount of parallax was insufficient, or was too much?
Well, I mean, the parallax is no. So for an object that's 6 kilometers away with a camera that moves about 10 inches, there should be no apparent parallax whatsoever. But you can very clearly see there was that blue. There's that blue line drawn across the scene, and that where that blue line was drawn, you can see in this GIF that is where the stage floor ends and the backdrop begins. You can see a very clear discontinuity. And I think that this is evident. You're not seeing that. I mean, okay, so just another argument from I don't see what you're seeing. I mean, that's not a refutation of what I'm arguing.
I'm not saying it is a refutation, but I am going to ask you a follow-up question. What methodology did you use to make the determination that the amount of parallax was incorrect?
Because again, we know from the topographic maps that this mountain is supposedly 6 kilometers away, and here you very clearly see that line in this still image where the stage floor ends and the backdrop begins.
Or maybe there's a decrease in elevation at specific points. Can you please answer my original question, though? What methodology did you use to come to the conclusion that the amount of parallax is incorrect?
The official topographic maps off of the NASA website clearly show that there is no decrease in elevation. The only decrease in elevation is Hadley's Rill, which is actually not even visible in this image. And it is just extremely clear from these images that this is a stage floor leading up to a backdrop.
I disagree with you that it's extremely clear. In fact, there's a lot of interpretation on your part. I am going to once again ask this question again. What methodology did you use to determine that the amount of parallax shown is incorrect?
Like I said, so you don't. Okay, so there's an equation where so do you at least agree that the parallax decreases linearly with distance? That there is a linear relation between the distance of an object and the apparent parallax?
The distance of an object has something to do with the parallax of the object, yes.
Linear, that there is a linear dependency between the distance of the object and the parallax. So from that, there's a very simple... Yes, it's just basic trigonometry. And from that, we can actually calculate the distance of objects with the known variables, such as the distance that the camera traveled, and say like the sizes of known objects in the foreground. And from the distance of the camera traveled, which is an estimate, and the known objects in the foreground, we can then estimate from the parallax the distances of the objects in the background. And
okay,
we don't have to do any trigonometry. We don't have to do any trigonometry.
We actually do. I need to know what is the formula that you use.
It's trigonometry.
Yeah,
and it's 300 meters. Sure, actually, yeah. What
is the formula that you use?
So you can use tangent. You can use the tangent formula. Because it's opposite over adjacent. Opposite over adjacent, right? So here, I'm gonna copy and paste the image really quick. Apologies, one sec.
If you don't remember the equation that you used, this seems to be your strongest piece of evidence.
Yeah, look, I just don't. I want to make sure that I say it correctly because I wrote this down.
Okay.
Just one second.
And just while you're getting that, I did the maths for the photos in Apollo 17, and it would work out to 1.61 photos per minute.
Thank you.
Right.
Doesn't seem a lot to me.
Doesn't seem impossible to me either.
It definitely does when you when you cut away a lot of the time that is required for experiments. Anyway, it's just a minor point. I'm not gonna put my hat on
What,
that exactly.
what is the equation that you use for the parallax measurement?
Yeah, I'm getting that for you right now.
You want me to help you out?
I've got it right here, buddy. I mean, hey, if you wanna do it, so here you go. Fight the Flerfs, Craig. Oh crap, that did not copy and paste well. Let's see if this copy and pastes well. Ah, of course, the formatting.
Hey, Craig, can
Okay.
you?
Well, here, look.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just walk you through this. So the Apollo 15 Hasselblad 60mm lens has an angle of view that is known to be 40 degrees. The lander dimensions are known as 23 feet and 1 inch high, 31 feet wide, 31 feet deep with the landing gear deployed. The image height is 2340 pixels. The apparent height of the LEM is 1236 pixels. So thus the angular size of the LEM is 20.13 degrees, which is just 40 times the LEM height divided by the image height. And so that gives a distance to the LEM where tangent of A equals opposite over adjacent, and you just plug in the numbers and you get about 18 meters. So would you agree that the lunar lander appears about 18 meters away from the camera? I think that's pretty close.
I did not hear an equation there. I just heard a bunch of numbers. I'm asking for a specific equation that I can use.
Yeah, tangent of A equals opposite over adjacent. So tangent of 21.13 divided by 2 equals 23.1 divided by 2 divided by x. And then we're solving for x because that's distance, which is adjacent.
Yeah, but
and
he's asking for the specific equation related to the discrepancy in the parallax that you're talking about.
Let me try to help you out here. So for example, the angular size formula is alpha equals 2 times the arctan of g over 2r, where alpha is the angular size of the object, g is the actual size of the object, and r is the distance to the object. If I wanted to solve for r, I would rearrange that to g over 2 divided by a tan of alpha over 2. That's another equation that I could use. Which one of those did you use?
The tangent one.
All of them have tangents in them.
Yeah,
That's my point.
Okay, well, like I said, here, it's on my phone. Here, let me show you this right here. That's the equation that I used. See, distance to the LEM is about 18 meters. Tangent equals opposite over adjacent, right? So see, we're getting that from the angular size. See, the LEM has the angular size of 20.
Angular size?
You determine angular size because the here, look, I guess I could just paste this link. So the angle of view of the 60mm Hasselblad camera is 40 degrees. The lander dimensions, which I'm going off of the height, is 23.1 inches high. And so the image height is 2340 pixels, and the LEM height is 2136 pixels. And so from that, you get the LEM angular size, which is 21.3, which is 40 times those numbers right there, which is the pixel numbers.
Perfect. I'm going to make a prediction, and I want you to prove me wrong. My prediction is that that image that you're showing us is cropped in. Show us the original.
For a fact that it's not cropped, because as you know, the crosshairs, there's a larger crosshair right in the center of the image that's more defined than the other 8 crosshairs around the side of the image. That's how you know that the image.
So yeah,
right there,
right
in the dirt. No, it wasn't
that's
cropped.
like it was cropped in.
No,
right.
it wasn't cropped. No, look at the bottom right. There's a crosshair in the bottom right that is visible in the V tracks.
I'm either having a stroke right now or I'm not crazy. Your GIF was cropped in. From
No. Look. He's got the official photo up right now, and you can see very faintly in the bottom right there is a crosshair that is visible in the V tracks on the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? And then if you look directly in the
Looking
center,
at the original one.
in the center. Yeah, directly in the center of the image. Go back to the other one, please. Directly in the center of the image is the larger crosshair. So this is an uncropped image.
Your GIF I'm talking about was the one that was cropped, not the original images.
No. Look, I'm doing the calculations based off of the official images. I'm not doing it based off of the GIF.
All right, then
yes,
what I'm going to do is this. I will go ahead and do my own measurements because, in my opinion, while I can't definitively point out exactly where your calculations are messed up, I have a feeling that there is a mess up in there somewhere. So I will go ahead and do the math on my own.
I've had it reviewed by multiple individuals. Okay, then there should be no problem. And what I did, okay, could you put the camera on me really quick? So then what I did is, you see there's these two points, A and B. So the displacement of point B is used to, because we know that it's about 18 meters away. So the displacement of point B is used as the reference. And then point A, which is right where the stage floor meets the backdrop, that is used to calculate the distance to the end of the stage floor. And using really simple high school trigonometry, you can calculate the distance to the edge of the stage floor.
There was no
really
stage
simple
floor,
trigonometry.
And really simple trigonometry would be able to. No, says the actual missions and everyone else. I will do my own observations, and I can almost guarantee that there might be some flaw with your math. I don't care who you had it checked by, because I have a feeling that your flaws. Are you willing to put?
I know for a fact. Like I said, I've had it reviewed by multiple people. I know for a fact that it's flawless.
Perfect. Want to place money on it then?
I mean, mathematics is kind of one of my specialties, Reds.
Cool. Then you should have been able to tell me that alpha equals 2 times the arctan of G over 2R the first time I asked. So math is one of your specialties. That's great.
Trivial high school mathematics.
Cool. $200 on your trivial high school mathematics. Agree?
$200?
$200.
Okay, so $200 they.
200. Not 300 maybe. 4.
Hey, I'm happy to bet 200, buddy.
Okay.
I am that confident.
Good. Can we make it 400?
I mean, I guess.
Ooh, this is
all
exciting.
Right. We have it. $400. I will go ahead and do the math, and we'll see.
Wait. Almost. Wait. We gotta set our terms. So, what are the terms?
The terms are that I will go through the topographical maps. I will look at this original footage with the Flat Earth will politely give to me in an email or something like that.
I've already sent you the pictures.
I will go through and see if there's any issue with the parallax, because your claim is that there's an issue with the parallax. This parallax shows that there's something wrong with this shot. I will go through it, and I will, using that high school mathematics, determine that there actually is no issue with this shot. In fact, I am so confident that, yes, I will bet $400 on that fact that I am able to show that using this high school mathematics.
I've sent you the
make sure
pictures.
That you send him.
Yeah,
make sure that you send him these links too, because these are the topographical maps of the area. Here, one sec. That one, and that one. Okay, and so one last thing that I want to talk about that image. Could you go back to the Metabunk image, the actual GIF, and could you post that on the screen?
God, I'm gonna have another seizure.
Okay.
Not in Photoshop.
Run.
I mean, not in Photoshop. Actually, could you actually
I've only
display
got
it?
I've only got it in Photoshop, but that's going between the two.
Oh, okay. Well, fine. Okay, could you zoom in to the top of the mountain?
Oh.
Nope, not dodge tool, zoom tool. I think you could just scroll. I think you could just scroll on the image.
I haven't been playing with Photoshop for very long.
It's right there. There's the magnifying glass at the bottom, above the right there. Yeah.
That's
So
what I was
zoom in
looking
to the
for.
top of the top of the mountain on the left. Whoa!
Oh my god, what have I done?
Yeah, 100%.
The one on
Yeah,
the
and then
left.
scroll bar, over there, and then could you scroll up a little bit too? Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Okay, so could you flick between the two images? So what I want you to notice, Reds, is that the lander itself and the top of the mountain parallax towards each other, and then away from each other, and then towards each other, and then away from each other, and toward. You see that they converge and then they diverge. They converge, then they diverge. Parallax does not work that way. When you have a parallax, all of the images, the background and the foreground move in the same direction. They do not move in opposite directions. And this is indicative of a parabolic back projection display, which would give this effect.
Parabolic back
See that?
image display.
Yes. They converge and then they diverge. They converge and then they diverge. So as you
I have
can
to
see,
say, you're very creative.
False parallax.
Can I speak for a second?
Go ahead, team.
Have you, Ace? Have you addressed the fact that the other image is not even a perfect square? Like it's not even like straight on two sides. It's not even straight. Have you addressed that?
Well, it's rotated
that fact
slightly.
yet?
It's rotated
No,
slightly.
not just
it seems.
rotated. I'm talking about the original image. Was one point of it was brought up a little bit from towards the left, from the bottom right towards the left and up a little bit. That's shown right here in this Photoshop file that he's got pulled up right now.
Oh yeah, because the camera
Craig,
the camera
if you can
moves
do me a
slightly
favor.
forwards and
No.
backwards.
I'm sorry. Hold on one second, Ace. Hold on one second. I'm going to tell Fight the Flat Earth. I'm going to give him some instructions to do real quick. Fight,
Yeah.
can you get and create a shape layer, okay? And I would like you to go to, I believe it's the second photo. It might be the first one, but I think it's the second one. I'd like you to start at the top and draw a box from the top all the way to the right. Start at the top left and draw the box all the way to the corner on the right, and then take it all the way straight down. Okay, I want you to
need
go all the way
box tool-
down
you
and
need
all the way
box
to the
tool
right.
selected. Yeah, there you go.
So
Yeah, I'm sorry, I might have said shape tool. Okay, so what I want you
No
to do
worries.
is I want you to basically draw a box around that image, around the second image, not that first one.
the
Just
second one.
hide the second one. I'm sorry, I'm not looking there. I'm looking. Yeah, that one. I'm sorry, the one that's in the front.
Right.
The
so
other one.
The other one.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'll just get rid of that.
Yeah, that one. Okay,
I mean,
draw the box
I mean,
around that.
You don't even need to.
No, can you
because-
see right there? You
Yeah.
can see right there. Yeah, look at the corner of that picture along the edge of that white line. Do you see how it's different? Look at the bottom as well. That image has been
Yeah, absolutely.
altered. It's not just a. You
It
can't
has.
just rotate
Yeah.
that image and even make it be a square. It's never going to be the same image as before. That's what I'm saying. There was
So
a
that's-
transformation done on that.
Absolutely, I agree.
ahead, I'm
Actually,
sorry.
those transformations are actually detailed very precisely in the Metabunk article. And these are all legal optical transformations, and that these optical transformations, rectilinear ones, you can call them Euclidean or affine.
Right.
There's a number of words that you could use, but they're all valid and legal optical transformations that can be used without severely distorting the image. And again, it wouldn't cause
But
this
yeah,
line
okay, so
in the
let me-
background, and it wouldn't cause
Well,
the
I agree with
convergent
you. Hold on,
divergence.
Ace. Let me answer that real quick. Ace, let me answer that real quick. Because I agree with you on that. But even I read the article as well when we've had our first conversation. And what he was saying in the article is that the transformation is done to preserve certain aspects of the photo, because obviously the camera, we can go between the two images, jump between the two images real quick, and just pay attention to the front wheel of the lander. I don't believe at this point the lander is actually moved.
Gotta hit
I think
escape.
only thing that's moved in the picture is going to be the astronaut and the person holding the camera, right? I mean, nobody's
Well,
jumped
so
in the
what they
lander and driven it, right?
Yeah, so what they did is
Because
that
you can
they
use those
set-
two images right there. You can use those two images right there. You could use that with the other points to kind of get an idea of where the camera shifted in position between the two photographs. So what they did is they decided they wanted to keep them, in that particular one, I believe they wanted to keep the mountain ridge. They wanted to maintain the integrity of the mountain ridge through parallax. Well, when you do that,
Yeah,
to
'cause that's
make
the most
sure that you
distant
do
object.
that, you're going to lose you're going to lose integrity on things that are much closer to you. So what you're showing to us, in my opinion at least, is not, I'm not going to say from a professional photographer's perspective, but from my perspective, it does feel like that's not really a solid argument that you're having. I'm not saying it's a wrong argument. I just don't think it's solid because it doesn't really take that. It doesn't take, your explanation doesn't take that transformation into account for the near objects, which is what you're bringing up as part of your argument.
Well, no, it does, because these legal optical transformations that were done by the person at Metabunk were done to compensate for certain specific lens effects and also to try to align the images as closely as possible. This is a best fit alignment, and yet even with this best fit alignment, we see the anomalies that I'm talking about, where it's a stage floor leading up to a backdrop, and then also that anomaly where you have the convergence and divergence of the parallaxes between the lander and the top of the mountain. So again, none of these optical transformations, these legal kosher optical transformations, would explain why you would have these anomalies in this image, or this pair of images. I've been waiting for that this entire time. Nobody has explained to me what operation in Photoshop would cause this discontinuity and parallax, would cause this convergence and divergence of the parallaxes, the mountain, the tip of the mountain, and the body of the lander.
It's the fact that he's altered the entire perspective of the picture, so that, you know, that's what I've been saying all along. And I mean, to say that there is a I think it's round here, you're saying the line is going from his arm over, like that would mean that everything back here would be exactly the same, but when you go between them, oh, wrong one. Like,
I'd like to point that out. Okay, so
here changes, but this over here doesn't change. So how can that
Right,
be?
right,
So
yeah,
this
yeah.
is
So
all
they
a backdrop.
align.
Hold on.
So here, watch.
But
watch.
here's what I do want to. Here's what I want to point out, though, Ace. Hold on. I want to point this out. Let's say we were to take that line and draw that line on this photo as is right now, and then we were to remove all the transformations that have been put into this photo. That line wouldn't even be straight anymore. That line would be distorted as well, because there would have to be transformations done to that line.
No, it would be straight,
Because that
I
line
actually,
is not a part of the. Go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
it would be
Go
straight.
ahead.
I took these official images. I mean, you could go to the official images, the post NASA altered images, and that line is clearly visible. Is very clearly visible in both of these images. And it's just,
I mean,
the only reason why
I've honestly got my eyes right up against the screen right now, and I can't see this defined line that you're talking about.
Well, you got to zoom in a bit. Zoom into that background
I'm
bit.
using Mark 1 zoom with my eyes, literally putting them up to the screen.
Well, I mean, you're gonna lose fidelity because of the possible pixel density.
I mean,
there you go. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. That's fine.
Like,
that's perfect. I mean, you can see where there's a bit of parallax where there's the stage floor, and then that parallax disappears. And again, like I said, there's those three craters that sink underneath the stage floor.
What? Where?
That trio of craters right there.
What?
They
This here?
sink a bit. Yeah, those ones. Yep, those ones.
They
can.
They don't sink.
Well, I was able to figure out that this actually isn't an original thought, because now there's a Oleg Olednik somebody like that was making this argument back in 2012. So obviously this isn't an original idea.
No.
Yeah. No,
so this was, so this was debunked in 2013 and again in 2015.
It was not debunked.
So
it has not been debunked.
So maybe I'll just repeat what they were able to do to conclusively debunk it. So apparently, we're not dealing with only parallax distortion, but other types of distortion that this doctor conveniently left out of his analysis. It's amazing what a little bit of research can do.
Well, look, Reds, again, if you want to win $400 from me, you have to, using high school trigonometry, demonstrate from the parallax that's apparent in these official photos, and you can download the photos yourself and you can manipulate them however you want, but using high school trigonometry, you have to demonstrate that that mountain in the background is 6 kilometers away. That's that. Otherwise, I get $400.
Can we increase it to 450?
Okay, I mean, you want a 500?
Because
make it a cool stack. I was about to say,
I mean,
what are y'all
1,000?
scared of? Who doesn't have a stack these days?
Let's do it. Let's do 1,000.
He's not a flat earther, so maybe he has $1,000. You know what I'm saying? If he is a flat earther, I'd say don't do it. Don't make it more than $10.
I mean,
and don't expect
I'm not
to be
an
paid
expert
anything more
in
than fucking.
I'm not an expert.
Look, I'm happy.
One
happy. Look, I don't want to fleece. I don't want to fleece Red's rhetoric because I know I'm gonna win this. So.
Yeah, of course, right? I mean,
again,
let me just say, one sec. I'm not an expert in photography or in altering digital images, but when I'm going back and forwards between this, what I'm noticing is that in this one compared to this one, in this one, it looks like the whole thing has kind of been warped down towards this way, because even the parallax up here changes in relation to what's going on down here. So when you go back and forth between them, it's like the whole image, including what you say is the backdrop of the stage, is warping towards where the lunar lander is.
The point here is that it's not a perfect image, and the way that this was conclusively debunked, if you just want to give me the $500 here, but I'll still do the math afterwards. Jump between the two images and look at the crater right at the edge, like where that astronaut's shoulder is, that little bit that's sticking out of his pack right there. If you were to jump between, you will see that every single dot, smudge, and speck within that is still visible. Now, if we're looking for parallax measurements and there was some sort of shift, you would see some of those dots, smudges, and specks disappearing or becoming obscured and whatever. The only thing that we're seeing is there's a difference in intensity of light. So the parallax isn't as severe as people are making out the claim. What we have here is a little bit of a rotation with the camera and a little bit of a sidestep, because this wasn't a perfect side-to-side motion. But people wish to go ahead and use that to make a parallax measurement. So they're not actually measuring parallax, they're measuring angular deviation, which is a difference in angular size. So basically, it's like this. If I have a line right in front of me and I turn slightly, I'm making a parallax there, but I didn't actually move in my spot. But you can still get a parallax measurement off of that. But if I make the claim that I'm looking in the same direction, you can make a parallax measurement off of that. Any sort of parallax, any sufficient parallax, especially for something that's so close on a movie set, we should see some of that regolith being obscured by that lip of that crater. The fact that we don't see anything being obscured by that lip means that we're dealing with most likely image distortion, not necessarily a absurd amount of parallax given the distance of those mountains. If you want my PayPal information, I have it for you.
I'm willing to bet money on top of money that you'll never pay me.
Reds doesn't back out in bets.
Really? Okay. Hey, I'm not calling you. I'm not calling you a bet welcher, but Reds, again, your job now.
Actually, Ace. We have somebody. We have somebody in the. Well, hold on. We have somebody that says they'll secure it for both of you. So if you both want to give him the money, and then he'll just give it to the winner. Dead serious.
Me? Just give it to me.
Let's do it.
No. I'm not. Look. I'm not.
Reds, does this?
No.
One sec. I just want to carry on what Reds was saying. Does this? The way that these images are, is that what you're kind of saying? How it's not just a perfect side to side? Like
yes, it's not perfect side to side. You can literally repeat this thing. Maybe I didn't explain it clearly, so I'll try again. A slight rotation to the camera along with a sidestep can increase the amount of apparent parallax in the image. If they're using that as their baseline, then their baseline is flawed from the very beginning. They're not taking context into account when they're applying their mathematics. And here's the thing. If we were dealing with the amount of parallax with a stage that's really close, we would see some of that regolith that's on the lip of that crater being obscured by the lip of the crater. The fact that we don't shows that this is actually not.
No, you do.
Yeah,
exactly. No, that's
no,
exactly
no, you don't.
see.
No, you don't. Please,
Yeah,
please flip.
You absolutely do.
Please flip through it again.
Also,
Okay,
that was a
let's do
sweet
100.
transition, by the way. I like that. Just boom.
Oh yeah, I
Smash
programmed
on the
that in.
flat. That was a good one. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
But so
yeah,
okay.
so the
Yeah,
fact,
let's see that.
so the fact
Very
that the fact that you don't see. So please flip between the two. Oh look, you don't see any obscuring. Every dot, smudge, and speck is still visible between the two images. Looks like I was right. Imagine that.
Okay,
I mean,
wait, so again,
to,
but you very
wait,
clearly-
Ace, to back up what you're saying here, if we just concentrate on, there's like a group of dark bits here.
Yeah,
when you
I see that.
when you go back and forth between them, they're still there, and like the relationship between them stays the same as well.
Yes, that's expected with a back projection display. Yes.
Wait, you just said the
Or
And again, you can very
sufficient
clearly
amount of
see that
distance?
line. You can very clearly see the line that I'm talking about right there. Right there, you can see that line where the stage 4 ends.
No, that's not a stage 4. That's lunar regolith. And secondly, if you're saying that
No, that is
is
a
an
stage
uptick,
4.
and it can't be a backdrop because parallax is still affecting it. Otherwise, your guys' calculations is null and void.
It's a
'cause we wouldn't see
look,
any
it's a
sort of shift.
parabolic. It is a parabolic backdrop. Here, actually, I've got an image to demonstrate this. It's a parabolic backdrop. One sec.
It's not a parabolic backdrop, but please go ahead and try
Yes, it
to
is.
demonstrate something.
You're
It
gonna
is
lose.
not.
You're gonna lose $500.
I'm
say.
already thinking about what I'm going to buy with it. I'm already thinking about what I'm going to buy with
Is
it.
this like kind
You
of
mean,
like the
wait.
faces?
How do you
like
how
when
do
you
you
look in
buy
the
how do you
faces?
buy things with money that you've lost?
I don't know. Maybe with the money that I
Okay,
gained from
so,
running this
like,
bet.
Craig,
Do you have
Craig,
the?
I
I was
just
do you
gonna
have
say
the
lose
name
a
of the
negative
fisherman?
amount.
How about this?
Here, Craig, I just sent
to
you
illustrate
Okay.
to illustrate this point, can you get me the PayPal information of the guy who wants to hold the money? Let's do it right
Oh,
now.
you know him very well.
I do. That's great. You got your credit card? Let's go ahead and start flipping some digits.
Okay.
we'll get to that after the show.
No. Let's get to it
Look,
right now. You're a very confident
I
guy.
believe
He's reliable.
Look,
He's
I
reliable.
believe that you look. I believe that you're good for the money. I'm good for the money. So here you go. Here's
Oh,
a
no.
parabolic
I'm worth
projection.
more
So-
than my weight in money. So let's go ahead and
Sure.
go ahead and do it right here.
Okay,
Let's
to
get over it.
Nice to go there. So again,
Are you-
this line
Nope,
that
didn't think
I've been
so.
pointing out again and again. Look, so this line that I've been pointing out again and again is where this platform with bulk soil ends and the view of this parabolic projection screen begins. This is this line that I've been talking about. And again, using basic high school trigonometry, you can actually measure the distance to the end of the platform with bulk soil.
Except the parabolic projection would have to be reverse of what you're illustrating here because the mountain that is in the background. We don't see what you're seeing here, dude.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
once again, would you?
with this,
Oh, you
there's
do? Okay.
with this,
Okay,
there's a
hang
clear
on,
curve,
hang
right?
on.
I mean, it looks
Hang
like
on. With
Sorry.
this, since you do, and you claim that you do, let's go ahead and start flipping some digits. Let's go ahead and transfer the money so someone can hold it, and let's do that right now. I'm confident. Are you?
Yeah,
Dun, dun,
I'm
dun,
confident. Except, look, I mean, I don't know who is this guy. I don't trust him. Look, I believe that you're good for the money. I'm willing to promise you that I'm good for the money. I don't care. Who is this guy?
I'm sorry.
I don't. Look, I'm not
Ace,
gonna send
alright.
this guy $500.
I'll hold the
Just
money.
randomly.
Right? I'll hold the money. You know, you've got my contact details, and you know you can quite clearly call
Look.
me out. A well-known internet person. You
Look,
can-
but
if
again,
you-
but do
I'll
I?
hold
But
the
look,
money.
but again, do I? So look, I trust you to hold the money, but do I trust your judgment in judging whether or not
We
Rhetoric
won't-
has actually
I won't
done
judge
what he
it.
claims to.
I will.
It is
I
up
will.
to Red's rhetoric.
I will
It is up
let
to Red's
an
rhetoric.
audience decide if it's been done.
Yeah, let's go ahead and share it with
Look,
all
wait,
the
no,
moon
this is
landing
the
deniers out
binary.
there.
No, but this is a binary. This is a binary thing. This is a binary decision problem. So Red's rhetoric, using the data in this pair of images, using basic high school trigonometry, needs to come up with a set of equations that demonstrates that the mountain in the background is 6 kilometers away. I have already done the mathematics, and my mathematics shows that it is not 6 kilometers away. It is 300 kilometers away. And Red's rhetoric will not be able to find a problem with my mathematics. Not a single flaw in my mathematics. It has been reviewed by dozens of people by this point.
Cool.
So look, if Red's rhetoric, if Red's rhetoric wants to win the money from me, again, like I said, the stipulation is that he has to, using trigonometry and using the information in these images, demonstrate that mountain is 6 kilometers in the background. If he fails to do that, then he owes me $500.
So all he's got to do is use trigonometry to prove that the mountains are the distance they were claimed.
Valid trigonometry, yes.
I mean,
okay, and
there is only one trigonometry, but you know.
I know. Look, I mean,
there's only one time of trigonometry. So let me just make something perfectly clear. Yes, I am very good with the money, but I will not embark on this sort. I will not put forth the effort unless I have some sort of guarantee that payment will be done. Fight the Flat Earth has just agreed to hold the money, and you know this guy. Look at this motherfucker right here. He couldn't hurt a fly. He couldn't scam anybody. So hang on, not done. If you transfer $500 to this guy right here, right now, I will know that you are actively engaged in this bet, and then I will put forth the effort. If you're not going to, then I'm not even going to waste my time.
I will hold it in my PayPal. It won't even go into my account. It will just be held in my PayPal.
I don't trust Craig enough to do this. I will transfer.
Dude, like,
wait.
Let me just say one thing. Let me say one thing a sec. Let me say this one thing.
I was in the middle of a sentence.
Okay, I just want to point out that there's 713 people watching this agreement. So, you know.
I agree. Look, I will put forth a part of it. I will put forth, just to put skin in the game, I'll put $100. I don't trust him with the whole thing. Okay. Look, I'm willing to lose $100. I wouldn't be too happy to lose 500. Okay. So I'm just saying, because you're not willing to, because you're not willing. I could go to my bank account and I can pull out $500 and I can show it to you on camera if I had the time. I would show it to you literally in my hands.
Anthony Riley showed us £1,000.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, people have money. Look, people have money.
But he never paid.
Is that okay? Look, I have been good. Look, I can bring up people. I've been good on every single one of my bets. I've lost bets. And I've been good with. There's not a single person that can come forward and say that I have not paid my bets. Not a single person.
That's
if you can find that person. That'd be.
That's fine. I'm not saying that person exists or doesn't exist. I'm not making any claims on that. What I'm saying is that the bet was for a certain amount. That certain amount was $500.
In the game, look, if you need me to put, if you're not willing to do this stuff, this just seems like you're backing out at this point. Because
he's doing exactly the opposite.
I'm actually willing to put forth $500.
Well, yeah, to your best buddy that you've known for years.
I've known Reds for about 9 months.
9 months, maybe. I've known him for years. Oh, yeah, exactly. Apparently I've known you for years, dude.
Ace.
Well,
you
look,
should
and
know,
Reds, look, I've known you
So.
longer. I've known you. Well, we've known of each other for much longer than that. But the thing is look, I know that you're good.
I watched my YouTube channel a year ago.
I'm willing to put skin in the game. I'm just not willing to just randomly send. I mean, hey, Craig, look, I think you're a great guy. Like, I don't It just this is.
So I'm just
really
looking at
quite
what
odd.
Christmas presents I can buy my kids with that $500.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But hey, right, okay. Now let's break it down. You said you'll put 100 up, all right? If you're both willing
I'll
to
put
put
some skin in the game.
100 up,
I will just to show that I'm serious about this. I'll
Craig,
just to motivate Reds, okay? But the bet is over 500.
Hey, Craig.
yes, Reds.
How many people are watching right now? How many people could literally read your
Look, I don't
shit
care.
sideways if you fuck this up with $500?
722.
Okay, but I'm just wondering. Look,
I'm not. No. I am
who's
not
to
wanting
decide?
some. No, let me be clear. I'm not wanting some skin in the game. In this case, it's all or nothing. I have $500
This is-
right here,
you're just
right
backing
now.
out at
That's
this
ready to
point.
go.
Look, this is so
Are you
stupid. Look,
fucking-
I'm willing.
And this
to put
is
skin in
why
the
we're
game.
saying you're delusional. If you're saying I'm backing out when I literally have my bank account open, ready to send it to him, then you're delusional.
Yeah, to your best fucking buddy that you've known for a long ass time. Look, me and
Ace,
Craig.
How many
Ace.
people can read my
How much
shit?
interaction?
Ace, honestly, you've known of me maybe, well, Reds has probably known of me about 2 months longer than you have.
Look. If there was truly a neutral party that we could both trust, like, okay, hey, Reds, how about you send that $500 to my best buddy? How about that? You want to put skin in the game? I'll send $500 to my best buddy, and then you send $500 to him. How about that? I've got a person in mind. You want to do that?
Cool. Who's your
Oh,
best buddy?
silence.
No, he just said, cool, who's your best buddy?
So
Ooh,
yeah, I don't
no
know. I mean, I
silence.
could choose anybody. Joe Bond, Dio. I don't know. There's plenty
I
of people.
can say a bunch of names, but the fact is,
Yeah, exactly.
I've got my,
But look,
I've got my
think
PayPal
about-
open
think about
right
the
now,
position-
right? And
Think
I'm
about the position that you're putting me in.
all right. Yeah, the position you're in is in front of 700 plus witnesses. You will
know.
both transfer me money. And
Okay, but again,
no, wait. This community, they value honesty and stuff, right? And if I fucked either of you over, I'd be done, like literally
Right.
done.
I don't think that you would fuck me up in a very obvious way. I'm just saying that, again,
Obvious?
who is to decide who gets the money? Like, Craig, come on. Like I said, how about we get Jovan on this? I have a good friend, Jovan. You don't know him. How are you willing to send $500 to my friend Jovan?
Let me go ahead and say this. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Regardless if you do the money really isn't all that matter. I'm still going to do this, sir. I'm still going to do this observation and this, analysis. I'm still going to do it. All right, but the one thing that I want you to understand here is that this isn't exactly as clear cut as you're making out to be. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Is that when you look at what this guy's been saying, and the only website I can find hang on, I'm not done yet. Let me finish making my point.
Yeah.
The only website that I can find this to be on is on a website that's all about conspiracies. Apollo-Soyuz hoax? Stanley Kubrick again? This is where people are getting this sort of information from. And people don't seem to understand that there is, in fact, distortion in the images.
That's just the genetic
And
fallacy.
That's
Do you
not
know
what the
what the
genetic
genetic
fallacy is.
Yes, it is. You're just saying, oh, it comes from a particular source that I don't like, thus it's wrong. Like, come on.
No,
That's
that's not what I said.
fallacy.
That is the
That's not
genetic
what I
fallacy.
said. That's not what I said.
Where
though.
it's generated from.
All right,
Come on.
dude.
I know
Here's
exactly
the
what the
thing.
genetic.
Science and orbital mechanics is my hobby. Philosophy is my bitch. The genetic fallacy only becomes a fallacy when you're making a conclusion from it. Did I make a conclusion that said because it's from here, therefore it's fake? No, I didn't. I.e., not the genetic fallacy.
Okay, fine. I retract that. I'm glad you're not making the genetic fallacy. So why did you bring up the genus of this argument, as if it's relevant?
Because the location of where this argument comes from is cause for suspicion. That's why. And when you look,
Oh,
when you do a
okay.
deeper
Again,
dive
that's still
besides
the
the
genetic
observer-
fallacy. That's still the genetic fallacy.
No.
If you
no,
make an
putting
inference,
it to-
if you make an inference based on the genus of an argument, that is the genetic fallacy.
when you make a conclusion based on the
Yeah,
location,
the conclusion
origin of
is that
something.
the conclusion is that it's sketchy.
It's
that's your
suspicious
conclusion.
is not a conclusion. It's suspicious.
Yes, it is. That is a conclusion.
On...
Suspicion.
Dude,
suspicion is the conclusion.
Okay, I can educate your ass on fallacies as well. I can do this. The fact is that when you're looking at the point,
than you by far.
Should we just get our dicks out and measure now, or?
Yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah! I know I'd win that one too.
I use mine as a kickstand whenever I'm tired. Anyway,
yeah.
I'm not talking about. I am not talking about the final conclusion of it. What I'm saying is that where this guy is and looking at all his other stuff, he says everything is a fucking hoax. And so, yes, I am going to be very suspicious of that. Throwing something into question does not mean actively saying something is wrong. You're conflating the two.
Your suspicion is a conclusion. And you're drawing your suspicion from the genus.
I didn't make a conclusion. For all I know, this son of a bitch could be right, but that doesn't change the fact that it's suspicious.
Your conclusion is suspicion. Come on, catch up, Reds. Come on.
A suspicion is a conclusion. Okay, hashtag suspicions are conclusions.
I mean, that's almost as bad as Riley's arguments about the...
Suspicions are not always conclusions, but your suspicion is a conclusion.
Are you going back on what you just said? No, it's not.
No, I'm not saying suspicions are... Like, I'm not making an identity claim here that's universal. I'm saying that in this context, your suspicion is the conclusion, and you're concluding that from the genesis.
No, so I'm concluding that it's worth a second look. No conclusion has been made due, i.e. not the genetic fallacy.
Well,
unless you're saying that his...
conclusion
Wait, Ace. Right, can we agree that his suspicion might be associated to the genetic fallacy, but the conclusion that he will get is nothing to do with his suspicion? Having a suspicion is just a suspicion, right?
I'm fine to throw this out. This is a silly argument anyway. Yeah, so, like I said, let's just reiterate again. So it is up to you, Red. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Can I finish my original point though? Because I was actually getting some with this. All right. Fact is that other people have looked into this. There is distortion there. Nowhere in this document, which I'm looking at, which has been typed up in 8-point font for some fucked up reason, as is taking into account any sort of distortion whatsoever. Not only that, but I also see that's in some of these images, they even corrected for so-called distortion. Because guess what? None of this shit is perfect. And you can actually tell that with the crosshairs that are used as a reference point. And not only that, they also went on this with the assumption that it was a perfect side-to-side motion. It was not a perfect side-to-side motion.
I don't think that was... No.
In figure 4, stereoscopic images of the Zimwat K power plant, however the fuck you pronounce it, is used as a comparative image in this analysis.
Mm-hmm.
That is a perfect side-to-side motion with no rotation in there.
That pair of images,
If you're using that to try and build something as far as a case and try and compare it to something where there actually is a little bit of rotation in the image.
Say that they assumed that the pair of Apollo images was a perfect side-to-side motion? Because what you just said doesn't justify that claim.
What you're saying
they actually took?
Look, it's clear. It is clear from the images. Actually, there is more of a downward shift than there is a rotation to the side. That may not be apparent, but just looking at it. But you can take the central crosshairs, and you can see very clearly that the crosshair actually drops down more than it shifts to the side. But I mean, the rotation is irrelevant. Again, it is your job. If you want $500, which I know for a fact that you're going to lose, it is now your job to use trigonometry to somehow figure out that mountain in the background is 6 kilometers. And I'll even be gracious. If you can come up with some way to show that mountain in the background from trigonometry using parallax is 5 kilometers away, I'd give you the $500. But I know you're not going to be able to do that.
If he did it for 500, he'd be wrong. So he wouldn't do that.
Well, no, I'm saying I'm willing to have some fudge factor because again, this is not a perfect setup. These were not taken to be specifically used for parallax analysis. So I'm willing to give Reds. I'm willing to give Reds the edge. So if you can, using basic trigonometry, somehow derive from the information in the images, from the apparent parallax in the images, that mountain in the background is anywhere between 5 kilometers and 7 kilometers, then you win $500. If you fail to do that, I get $500.
Fight the Flat Earth, I'm sending you a link. Can you please screen share figure 11 for me, please?
Roger.
Yeah, with the AB. So it says the image was attained by the subtraction of 2 photos taken with a camera shift not more than 20 centimeters, transformations of scale, rotation, reverse distortion, perspective shift, and the convergence of the 2 images in the stereoscopic image were applied. That's what you're talking about?
Perfect. Yes, please please bring up that image when you can fight the Flat Earth. Just tell me when it's up.
Okay, it's up.
Okay, can you do me a favor and zoom in on that? Because honestly, it looks like pudding on my end.
I'll send you a higher quality 2 secs.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank
It
you.
looks like, because it looked like absolute ass before. Okay, Fight the Flat Earth, I'm going to ask you a very simple question.
Yep.
Okay, looking at the part of the ground that's closest to the camera, excuse me, and the mountains in the background, are you seeing stretching, yes or no?
Repeat the question.
Between the ground that's closest to the camera and the mountains in the background, do the mountains in the background appear to be stretched? They appear to be like growing in lengthwise.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Now, if I were to have that stretchiness as data points in the background, could I use that to do parallax measurements on and thus get the wrong answer?
Yeah, I mean, those images are unsuitable for use on parallax analysis because, so look, if you actually read the article, the reason why I actually put these images here is the reason why he made figure 11 is if you actually go further in the conclusion. So it says that Mount Hadley moves and bows. The wrong initial assumption was probably made that this is a real lunar landscape and that the settings are a total artificial phenomenon. So the thing is that he is talking about testing his own criteria of what he believes to be in the background, and he's testing different variations of assumptions. And the thing is that the reason why he did this transformation on the images was to actually, as closely as possible, overlay the foreground and maintain, and the background was irrelevant to the analysis. This figure 11 was for analyzing the foreground.
Yeah, but the amount of distortion that we're seeing in the image is exactly the type of distortion that I assumed was in that first GIF that you showed. It didn't look quite right to me, but then when I actually did a bit of research, I was like, oh, no shit. Of course that's what was happening now that we see a more clear example of it right here. So if you're using those images and they're suffering from the same type of distortion that's there and trying to build parallax measurements off of that distortion, then your figures are simply going to be wrong. You're going to get parallax when no parallax is actually there to measure. Do you see the issues that I'm running into here?
Yeah, I think it's your own misunderstanding about what's actually happening in that image.
Sure, that's what's going on here. Okay, cool.
Whew,
yeah, like I
funny.
said, so again, that image was created specifically to test assumptions about the distinction between the foreground and the background. And figure 11 was created to test the assumptions of the transformations required in the foreground. So that image was specifically made to test assumptions about the foreground, not the background.
Cool, but when you're using the foreground as a baseline, the background starts shifting, and when you use the background as the focal point, the foreground starts shifting. And
yes,
distorting.
that's obvious. That is completely obvious. Look, I could.
Then there's distortion.
I could take those two. I could take those two photos
That's my point.
Unaltered. Did I? Oh, okay. I can take those two photos unaltered, and I could over where, say, the the foot pad of the lander is kept still, and the rest of the image rotates around the foot of the lander. You know, I mean, I can do multiple things. So when you're doing parallax analysis, this is why the metabunk image is being used, is because they took the most distant object in the background, which was that white hill, and they set the image of that white hill in the background to be still, while the rest of the image shifted around the most distant object in the image.
Okay, I need you, Fight the Flat Earth, to do me a solid. I need you to show figure 16, and then after you get to figure 16, well, let me know when you're on figure 16, and then I want to say something about it, and then we're going to jump down a bit.
13, 14, 15.
Well, I don't understand how any of these images are relevant to the metabunk image.
I'm going to it's all about this GIF that you showed. So we're looking at this. So image 16 up on that. Okay, so now if you're looking at this, Craig, let me ask you this. Would you say that there is a rotation in this image?
Undeniably so, yes.
Okay, please go down to figure 18. That is the overlap. So as you can see, a rotation in the image will cause what looks to be parallax of both the foreground and the background. But as we can see, those two images are not being parallax. The images are actually of a different perspective because it's a different perspective in terms of rotation. So not only are we introducing side-to-side steps when it comes to the GIF that you initially showed, but we also have rotation that we need to take into account. And if it causes this big of an effect of just a rotation alone, just imagine what kind of fucker we're going to have with the original image.
Again, Reds, this is great. I love that you're airing your misunderstandings of these images. It's amazing. Like, this is what happens when you try to
in front of 700
freestyle
people.
it. This is what happens when you try to freestyle it. Wait, Reds, I let you talk. This is what happens when you freestyle it. No, keep it on that image. Keep it on that image. So, Reds, what I want you to realize about this image is that there were non-optical transformations that were done to this image. Actually, if you read really closely in this article, they actually do what's known as a sub-pixel transformation. So these are non-optical transformations. This is not just reverse distortion and lens distortion and all these other ones. What this guy did is that he actually wrote a computer program to actually match on a sub-pixel level basis the individual points in the image. And the evidence of this case is the fact that these crosshairs are bowing in and out. Okay, this is actually a custom piece of software that this guy wrote to actually generate this image, and he uses non-optical transformations on this pair of images. So I love that you're freestyling this and face planting in front of 700 people. This is great.
All right, perfect. So can I go?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. I love how you're just broadcasting your ignorance, because it doesn't matter what program that he was using. There is indeed distortion in the image, with you yourself agreed to not long. Go ahead, rewind this, and see yourself disagree with yourself in front of 700 people.
Wait, when did I disagree? There's distortion. Wait,
I'm not done yet. I'm not done. Hang on, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. Nope, not done yet.
Okay.
Not done yet.
This is just utter nonsense.
Now that is a face plant. And also, you can even see, looking at the bottom left of this pair of images that's being blinked between, and the top left of the images that's being blinked between, you can see that there is indeed distortion in the image, i.e. no actual parallax can be measured. If this is the type of distortion that we're seeing in the first GIF that you shared, which I assert is indeed the case, since we're seeing a clear example of it, which probably has something to do with the fact that there's also rotation in the image, not just side-to-step motion, that means any parallax measurement gotten by this dumbass would be inconclusive at best.
Where
So
does he make parallax measurements on these images? Where does
do you want to go ahead and faceplant some more? Be my guest.
Yes, let's do this, Rhetoric. Oh no, wait, could you go to figure 34 in that article, please? Figure 34.
Craig just petting his pussy.
As always. Say hello, Cookie.
So as you see, scrolling down, he's adding a digital distortion grid that creates non-optical transformations. This is actually a very clear example of the fact that this is a non-optical transformation. Like I said, he's actually doing what's known as sub-pixel matching, where he's actually matching the pixels in the image and then actually manipulating them in a way that a lens does not manipulate the image. And so the thing is that you're not doing these very basic transformations. These are actually very complex transformations that are done automatically by a computer program. And again, yes, he has actually done some parallax measurements with these ones because he's actually done these much more complex transformations than you'll probably ever do, Reds.
Yeah, so he used a computer image, which, regardless how he did it, distorts the image, and used distorted images to render parallax measurements. Bravo, my friend. If that isn't the height of scientific scrutiny, I don't fucking know what is.
I mean, and that's kind of been my point about the images. That's kind of been my point about the images all along, is that because they have these distortions on them, you can't... Shush, kiddies. Sorry.
That's a bad pussy right there.
Yeah. You can't really use these pictures to determine the things that you want into because there is these distortions in the images. Does that not make sense?
Again, just because... So, no, it doesn't make sense. So, again, I'm just wondering, why do you think that adding these kinds of subpixel transformations invalidates them for parallax analysis? I would actually argue that they make them more apt for parallax analysis because he is taking into account not only optical transformations, but also distortions that would otherwise not be corrected for using just purely optical means.
Using a modified image as your baseline is always wrong. All right?
That's my point.
Okay, good. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Reds. Okay, so Reds,
cool.
I've got a question.
Can I finish?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So the deal is this, is that if he is modifying them and adding distortions into them to so-called correct for stuff, then what he's doing is correcting, in quotes, the figures that will eventually be applied when using trigonomic math. If you are changing the starting point, you're going to change your finish line.
Yeah, but he's doing much more complex analysis than just high school trigonometry, which is all I'm asking you to do.
Yeah, he's actively modifying the source material. If you're modifying the source material, then you're screwed.
Okay, let's get back to that. So let's say that there is an image of a mugger, and that this mugger is very far in the distance, and his face is being reflected off of a window, and it's also very dark. So now the reflection off of the window makes it very skewed, and it's very dark, so you have to both lighten the image and then skew the image that's reflected in the window based on the laws of optics to resolve the image mugger. And now that this face that has been resolved using these non-optical transformations, is that admissible in court as evidence? Would you just merely throw out that evidence because, oh, you lightened the image and you applied some transformations to unskew the face?
Yeah, but I also wouldn't use that image to determine exact measurements on the guy's face.
Exactly.
Why not?
Basically, here's the thing.
What do you mean?
The difference here.
I thought you guys trusted. I thought you guys trusted in mathematics and science and like all these things that we know about optics. Like, where did that trust go?
You do realize that particular example is all about identifying something, not about measuring distance via parallax.
Duh.
So basically,
of course.
yeah.
Yes, I realize.
So you're comparing apples to oranges and then bitching
No,
that
I'm
your
not.
apple
No.
doesn't taste
Look,
like an
the point,
orange.
you're missing the point. See the point? Right over your head.
Okay,
the
right.
point is
I think the
whether
point
or not.
let me just stop one sec.
Go
The
ahead.
point is that
Yeah, go ahead.
how do you know the corrections the guy has made hasn't distorted things to a level where you cannot rely on that to make parallax measurements? Because you have to reverse engineer the corrections that he's made to be able to get the correct base figures.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why my bet with Red's rhetoric is not based around these images from Oleg. It is based around either analysis that he'll do on his own in his own version of Photoshop, or analysis based on the work done by the fine folks at Metabot. I'm not asking Reds to do any analysis on any of Oleg's images. I am asking him to do analysis on either, because this is why I provided the original images to you, Craig, and I'm sure that you forwarded them to Reds, so that he himself can do whatever versions that he wants with any kind of limitations that he wants, or he can just merely use the supplied GIF from Metabunk. I'm not asking him to do any analysis on the images from Oleg whatsoever. My bet has nothing to do with Oleg's images.
All right, so here's my response. And again, do you know that a hammer is a tool that can help you get shit done?
Sure.
Did you know that a hammer is pretty fucking useless when you're trying to untighten a nut?
Wow, that's news to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's great, isn't it? So it shouldn't be, but I'm not surprised at this point.
I hope that you guys can catch on to the sarcasm. Come on.
Post-law. But like I said, a tool that is good for making an identification of a guy's face may not be a tool that is appropriate for making parallax measurements. That is the difference, okay? So when we're looking at this, we have distorted images that are being used. And if we are going to go ahead and look at this, we got to say, okay, are these distortions in the original images? And guess what? They actually are.
Okay, but you're
so in reality,
still
any
missing
sort of, how are you still missing this? Any sort of parallax measurement that you want to go ahead and
I hear you loud and clear. I know
then
exactly
why
what
are
you're
you
saying.
not getting it then? Then why are you not getting this?
I understand. Look, I understand what you're saying, and I understand why it's flawed. So let me explain to you why it's flawed.
That this website
The
is
thing
flawed?
is that we are talking about whether or not transformed images are admissible as evidence. The transforms themselves, for the most part, are irrelevant. If they are applicable transformations that are applicable to the particular analysis at hand, and they are applied correctly, not only are they applicable transformations, but that these transformations are applied correctly, then this transformed image will still be admissible as evidence. That is the point, Reds.
Are you done? All right, good.
I would hope that you
Fife,
have the social competence to know when I'm done.
Hey, Fife, can you go ahead and go down to figure 29?
Yeah, one sec.
Thank you.
Come on.
Also, I'm glad I finally got to talk to you, Reds, because I actually really regret that I decided to go with Team Skeptic over you. I think it would have been much more interesting to have spoken to you in the first show. So I'm glad. I'm Team Skeptic. So I'm glad that you showed up this time. This whole argument.
Well, hold on, Ace.
Look, team, you're a good guy. You're a nice guy.
Let's remind everybody. I know, and I think you're a nice guy too. But let's remind everybody about something. When you first presented the evidence, you made the claim that these were unaltered photos. You had no idea there was any Photoshop done to it whatsoever at that point.
That's
and
not
when
true.
I brought
That's
that
not
up to you,
No.
That
Look,
was my
I
entire
said
argument.
that
My entire argument was okay. Well,
I said that there are original
I brought it
images from NASA. Okay, whatever. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, we're not going to argue about that here. But hey, yeah, you're a good guy too. The sarcasm's both ways.
All right, cool. All right, let's hear Reds.
All right,
No, I'm
all right. Are we done? Are we done jacking everyone's dicks? All right, good. I'm happy about that. So let's go ahead and look at this image. This image, I want to
Wait,
go ahead
I'm not
and
finished
say,
if that's
well,
the case.
Hey, well, okay, fine, team. Since you want to be included in this, let me ask you this question. Let me go ahead and ask you this question. In this image, looking at the crater that's to the side of the astronaut on the left of the astronaut, can you see any sort of visual parallax within that crater?
Oh no, none whatsoever, or almost none. No.
Didn't ask you.
Team?
Oh, I'm sorry. I stepped away for a second. I wasn't even listening.
You son of a bitch. Okay. Here I'm trying to include you
No,
in shit,
I'm
and you
finishing
fucking
off,
walk
guys. I'm
away.
sorry. I'm self finishing. Okay, I'm self finishing.
Can you
I thought we were
please
done
put
with the
down
group
the
thing.
hentai for 15 seconds? You have a problem,
Okay,
dude.
so what was the
I
question?
said this before. The question...
Yeah, I know.
The question... You have a problem, dude. You're a sick man. Anyway. The question I am going to ask... Oh, for fuck's sake. Fuck you, Craig. Okay? The question, again, the crater, all right, that's to the left of the astronaut. Do you see any sort of parallax in that image whatsoever? Or does the top of the image look like it's holding relatively still, I guess is a better way of putting it?
It's really close. I would
Really
say,
close to
like,
being
with the quality of the image that I'm getting over here, even if it is good coming from Fight the Flat Earth, it's hard to see if any of the pixels are shifting at all inside of the crater.
I've just upped your quality a bit, team.
So go ahead and take,
Yeah, I mean,
take
it
a look
looks
at
pretty
it.
much
And
like it looks pretty much like it's in place,
all right, good.
at
So
least from my
since
point
we
of view
have
on the screen.
now, since we have a GIF right here that shows, i.e., pretty much zero movement right there, if we have a distant object that's showing basically no movement while working side to side, tell me, does that make that object really close or far away?
Far away.
That makes it very far away, huh? Interesting. Funny. So if I were to look at this, I'm probably seeing a shift, maybe, of a single pixel, at least as it is on my screen. And judging by, I'm sorry, how far to the side did the astronaut walk? Does anyone actually know the actual correct value?
It's 6 kilometers.
I don't.
No. The astronaut didn't walk 6 kilometers.
How much he moves in there.
Oh, the astronaut? How far he
looks
walks?
pretty much.
How
it looks like he pretty much just turns. It kind of looks like he just turns a little bit, and the camera changes position. You can tell the tire, the front right tire. Yeah, the front right tire is slightly bigger in the second image where he's facing us. So I think that's probably, the camera's probably slightly moved forward and turned slightly just a bit. And you can see parallax in the mountain behind him. It's funny that you see parallax in front of the crater. You see parallax in front of the crater. You don't see parallax in the crater, but you see parallax in the mountain directly behind the astronaut.
By a single pixel, I'm seeing a little bit of parallax in that mountain that's just over the dude's head. And if we also look at the,
if that was a backdrop, the whole thing would be the whole thing would be locked up.
Also,
it would
team,
not
can you
have anything
highlight
off as a backdrop.
Team, we're gonna need a cursor. So can you put the cursor on that white blotchy crater? That's right there. Just hold. I want you to put the cursor right on the rim of that crater, right on the rim. All right. I want you to give that crater one hell of a rim job right now, and just leave it right there.
Okay, hold
Notice
on.
how we're not seeing any sort of shift. Notice how we're seeing any sort of shift. So if we go to the original GIF that was showed, we see parallax. If we go to this corrected one, we see almost none.
Wait, can we?
So it seems like now we have a.
Wait, one sec. Let him finish his point.
Okay.
So it seems to me like if distortion is okay and distortion is fine, whatever the case may be, then fine. Then I should be able to use this image, and basically we're seeing parallax of a pixel. Get that?
Yes, Reds. Yes, you're a genius. You're a genius, Reds. Please finish. Go ahead.
Well, I
You want
don't have
me
to
to
state the
explain? You
obvious.
want me to explain why what you said? You want me to explain why what you said is just amazingly silly and idiotic?
Oh, please do, Sensei. Educate this pupil.
All right, sweet. Okay, I want you to scroll up one figure. Boom. This guy added a non-optical distortion grid to the top of the image, and this non-optical distortion grid that he applied is inferred from the image. And look, oh, it's parabolic. Oh, it seems like it's a parabolic back projection display. Oh, wouldn't you have known? Huh.
Hey,
That's
question.
why. That's why the
you...
background. That's why the background is still is because he applied a non-optical transformation, this distortion grid.
Yes. Okay. Are you ready? You ready for this? Did you or did you not say that these adjusted, distorted, edited images, kind of like the guy, would or would not be admissible in court? Can you please repeat that answer?
Okay. Yes.
So if I were to use these images, you would have no problem with it because in your eyes, distortion is perfectly okay.
So again, we should read the text. So it says in Figure 28, the distortion grid for the converging images to obtain zero stereoscopic parallax. Recall that introducing the distortion grid is the method of going beyond the standard optical transformations, the system of creating equation for the 1 million pixel image going beyond the laws of optics in converging two images into the stereo pair questions the veracity of the images and results in the postulation that the lunar landscape is faked. The regular curved repetitive distortion grid for the other pair of images indicates projection of a distant background onto a rear screen positioned about 100 meters away from the quote-unquote astronauts in the foreground. So he is saying right there that his software inferred from the images that it is a parabolic back projection display using a pixel. Use 1 million pixels, sub-pixel accuracy, to infer that optical distortion grid.
Okay, so it inferred optical distortion, but it didn't infer parallax, which is the point, dude.
No.
So I'm glad that you brought this up. So let's go ahead. Let's go through that. I want you to read that again, but please tell me where in this does it say that? Oh, we're inferring, not concluding.
Well, no, the inference is done by the algorithm, and it inferred a regular curved repetitive distortion grid that's parabolic.
You said that. Okay, so we have two images where one is distorted significantly when compared to the other.
Both of them.
This guy
are distorted.
Both of them are distorted, but again, I'm talking comparatively. So let's hypothetically say that one is perfectly okay. We know it's not, but let's just say that it is for the sake of argument. The other one is distorted a lot. That distortion is corrected, and once you correct for that distortion, you don't see this horrendous amount of parallax. So why is that the case when in the original GIF that you showed that there was a significant amount of parallax? Could it be that the parallax that you're seeing is simply distortions?
Because the original GIF from Metabunk only uses purely optical transformations. He is using non-optical transformations using sub-pixel matching.
Yes.
There's a question from the chat. You keep saying sub-pixel matching when the smallest unit in an image is a pixel. Can you define what you mean by that?
There's four pixels. Yeah. So there's 4 pixels that create an average between the pixels, and that average between the pixels, there's going to be a grid. So there's going to be an average here, an average here, an average here, an average here. It's in between the pixels because when you move the image, there's always, those pixels are not going to perfectly line up with the exact atom that the previous image had its pixel on. So using the subpixel matching, you're matching based on the pixels and then what's in between, the averages in between the pixels to make it even more of an accurate distortion grid.
In between the pixels?
That's why it's called subpixel matching.
That's what in between the pixels.
Yeah, because you're taking the average of the 4 pixels in addition to the 4 pixels themselves.
Well, the chat's saying that is not subpixel, but
well, meaning comes from use. This is how this guy is using these words.
No, that's not it.
His operations are detailed.
Quantization is what he is describing. Also, one person says it's called quantization. Is what you're describing?
Quantization? Yeah, I think that's also it. Yeah, I mean, there's multiple terms for the same idea.
That's from a graphic artist that's saying that as well.
So basically, you're saying it's an accurate distortion is what this guy's doing, but a distortion is still a distortion. If you correct for that distortion and we're not seeing this parallax, then there is no parallax to actually measure.
But remember, no. But he is inferring the shape of the background, and I actually did this myself. I actually even sent Craig this analysis that I did, where I actually used off-the-shelf photogrammetry software to infer the three-dimensional scene using just default settings, off-the-shelf photogrammetry software, and it backs up exactly what is being said here, that there is about 100, 200, 300 meter distance to this backdrop, and there's this significant gap between where the stage floor ends, and there's this parabolic shape to the backdrop. This is all confirmed by off the shelf photogrammetry software. I think the software I used was called Metashape.
Okay.
Metashape.
Sorry, go on, Reds.
Go ahead.
No, I was about to say that we'll start wrapping this up, but you finish your point first.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Okay, because I am in desperate need of a nap and an angry wink. So with the figure 29, I'm looking at this image again, and I'm not seeing any sort of parallax in the background image. So if we were to use that particular image and do parallax measurements off of that, we would literally be doing parallax measurements maybe off of a single pixel at best. And if that's perfectly fine, if that's perfectly okay, then great. Then I should have no problem in doing just that. If I were to do parallax measurements on that, the parallax measurements would render back an extremely far away landscape. And so if I am to use this image, there should be no problem, since apparently distortions are perfectly okay so long as they're corrected for by this awesome branded software that does shit, because distortion is okay when you're doing measurements. So you know what? I will use this one, and I'll get back to you.
That's nonsense, Reds. I'm not asking you to use a image that was manipulated by a moon hoaxer to do your parallax meagements. Reds, that's silly.
Well, you seem to agree with moon hoaxers, so this shouldn't be an issue, right?
I agree, but look, do you understand the manipulation that was done? This distortion grid is a non-optical transformation. So to do optical analysis of distance would be completely impossible after you've done non-optical transformations.
I don't need to understand the process to see the final result. I'm looking at the result, and I see zero parallax in the image. Please explain this to me. If there is parallax in the image, how is it?
You're so dumb.
Wow. I've never heard someone say that to Reds before.
700 people agree with you.
All right.
Actually, a lot of them have. They all won dumb fuck of the year.
Look, Reds,
wait. Let me just put this to bed now. Right. We hash out the agreements of the bet. After the show, because people want to see what happens with that, and if you're both willing and confident in what you say, then we'll get that bet sorted out. But I think for tonight we've gone round in circles on everything a fair few times. Ace, honestly, I feel like you hand wave dismissed all the evidence that I gave of the moon landings not being fake.
Right back at you, buddy.
Well, no, I didn't hand wave dismiss anything you said. I actually spoke about
I don't see the line.
No, yeah, not physically not seeing the line that you're talking about is not hand waving dismissing. I had my head right up to the screen, but all the actual evidence of the moon landings being real, you pretty much did just hand wave dismiss. But
no, I actually gave very detailed. Some of them I did hand wave dismiss because I didn't have a very good answer to, but some of them I gave very detailed responses to. So
not all of them, but that was my point.
Anyway,
but,
whatever.
Well, I'm going to read
the
the super chats, and then we're going to get out of here for tonight. So I've had fun as always. Let's start off with Steven Steen for $4.99 US. The moon was formed from lava that got stuck on the firmament and cooled rapidly by the water from the flood exploding from the depths. Well, yeah, we all know that, but we have to keep that quiet, otherwise NASA tells us off. $1.99 from Steven Steen.
Can like smoke a joint?
I know, right?
Isn't that the lucky theory?
$1.99 for Steven Steen. Team is under my desk keeping busy. FTFE. You down there, team?
Woo!
Randy Bridges, $5. The windows are double layered. Jesus, it's engineered for pressure. Dean Lindham for $5 Canadian. Thousands of people working for numerous space agencies. No one talked. Clinton can't get a Hummer in the Oval Office without everyone knowing. Yep, that was Red's argument earlier against Riley as well. MS Dejessa, MS Dejessa for €5. About the photos, I recommend the Mythbusters episode on the topic of the moon landing. Spoilers, they debunk the denial. $2 from Recovering Albanian. Retroreflectors, end of. $2 from God Rarity. I want to gift you a copy when I'm done with my game. Yeah, I'll take that, thanks. €2 rather from MS Dejessa. What about the retroreflectors? Yeah, we did briefly discuss those. $5 from Captain John. See you, Space Cowboy. I'm out. Goodbye. $5 from Matthew Mathers. Hey, Ace Rimmer, how many times have you landed rockets on the moon and compared the photographs that were taken? None. Come on, kids.
No, a bunch, like 12
bad
or 13
pussy.
times, you know? All by myself.
Bad pussy.
Yeah, bad pussy.
That's a bad pussy.
Cookie, quit it. Leave Rufus
Bad
alone.
pussy.
Seriously, stop.
He's like, these darn moon hoaxers and their lies and conspiracies.
Right, the pair of you, cut it out.
Bad pussy.
€2 from MS Dejessa. Unlikely things happen every day. $5 from Uncle Ned. Did the denier seriously just accuse Reds of the Gish Gallop? Oh, the irony. $5 New Zealand from Bella Charge. You're lucky they brought Reds in and not the professor. He would have smoked you. Oh, was Philip Bell in the chat? That would have been good. He was actually put on the moon. Yeah. Robert Williams for $4.99 US. Look up moon sickness. Apollo astronauts that flew to the moon developed serious health problems. Yeah, that's something that I pointed out. $1.99 from Stephen Steen. Reds for dumb fuck of the year. €2 Emma Dejessa. Ace is not a skeptic. He's a contrarian. $5 from Matt Rock. What are the odds all these secret technologies to fake the broadcasts being made, used, and never leaked ever? The probability argument is trash. $5 New Zealand from Bella Charge. So if NASA had 30 years ahead tech, your rocket and life support argument is mute, as in 1990 they could easily launch rockets. Robert Williams, $1.99. I took over 2,000 pictures at DraconCon this year. New Zealand, $5. Only sheeple can't see. What is the background of Ace? Why should his opinion be considered of any authority? What is he a specialist in?
Ace, can I ask you a question, Ace? There are people out there in the chat that think you're a kid.
Programmer. Well, I'm a computer programmer that has a focus on both computer security and data analysis. I do a lot of statistics for my work. I also have a background. In my college, I studied artificial intelligence and machine learning. So I do a lot of computer programming, mathematics stuff. So,
okay.
Anyway.
Team, what was your question?
Are you an adult, or are you a child? People in the audience want to know. I've tried to tell them you're an adult, but they really think you're a kid.
How old I am?
You're like 13.
You want to take a guess?
I'm going to say
I look like
well,
I'm 13.
I'm going to say you're 34.
Yeah, you do, but no, I'm going to say he's younger than that. I'm going to say about 27.
Boom! You nailed it. Good one.
Well done, team.
Yeah, I'm 27.
Okay. All right. So there's his background. $2 from James Bieniek. I saw a GIF. NASA lied. Google wins. Another $2. Still haven't heard what tech made it impossible. $5 from John Rapp. Oh, the continuous exaggeration of points as an argument style, especially with the incredulity. Any photo can be argued and then actually explained. Another $2 from James Bienick. That's the equation he Googled. $5 from Dean Lindholm. Electrical power came from hydrogen oxygen fuel cells. The lander had 3 cells on it. Each had a max of 2,300 watts and produced 31 volts. $2 from Hornswaggles. Hitchcock pull camera effect. $5 from James Bienick. It's obvious, you have to zoom. Zooming loses fidelity. It's a computer guess based on a change in size. $5 from Translator Carmanium. I think if you extend Ace's blue line to the right edge of the photo, it goes above the terrain and protrudes a bit into the black of space. $2 New Zealand from Bella Charge. I want to see the math for 300 kilometers away. €2 from MS De Jessa. Here's for trolling pose in chat. $2 from Blake Hill. I'm paying to say I'm bored of this argument. $5 from Mr. Unite for the Children. FTFE, my 7-year-old daughter loves his NASA PJs. Can he tell us where his mummy bought them from?
Walmart.
There you go. Obviously, as you can see, they do them in child sizes. $5 from Area 85 Restorations. If you're so confident, then send Craig the money. If he fucks you, the entire internet is going to know. Pretty good motivation not to, if you ask me. Yeah. We're going to get that sorted out offline, and I'll let everyone know what happens.
We will sick his pussies on him.
Yes, they've calmed down now. 10 Australian.
Oh, hey, send it to my friend. Send it to my friend.
We'll get the details sorted out.
I know.
Definitely. $10 from Area 85 Restorations. Could you have Ace, math boy, calculate the size of the screen that would be required to cover the field of view of the camera given the backdrop was 100 meters away, as he claims? Possibly. Maybe for another day.
Yeah. Easily.
$5 from Linhart. Ace, you're an idiot, and you need to learn terms before you can use them. Can't wait to see you lose the bet. $2 from Mike71. Moon rocks. Yeah, I didn't get to moon rocks. That would have been on 1 point. €2 MS De Jessa. Did Ace's brains join the 27 club? $5 from Alphabet. Bringing it back to Nvidia demo. In TC mode, you strip the scene of its shader. Textures don't carry reflectivity or albedo. You need a shader. $10 from Drakpool. A moon stage with every rock tied to fishing line with 5/6 of the weight as a counterweight in case astronauts want to throw one. It might be cheaper to fake moon physics on the moon itself. Yeah, well, he was such a perfectionist, he demanded it was recorded on set.
True.
$2 from Xantar2482. I'm a programmer too. This kid's a fraud. And $5 from Doc Tyler. I saw the moon landings live on TV. Had an uncle who saw the launch in person. Claiming the landings were fake is a joke.
I saw it on TV, so must be true.
Well, it's the fact that there was millions of independent people as well.
Ignore all the lies. Ignore all the lies that have been broadcast on TV. Just ignore all that, you know?
I mean, you ignored quite a lot
It took
tonight.
the baby
anyway,
from the incubators. Oh!
My goodness, Ace. Well,
you know what I'm referencing, hopefully.
It's been an interesting conversation tonight, guys. I hope everyone has had fun. Thank you, Ace, for joining. We can pick this up at another time, and I will definitely make sure that you and Reds get that bet sorted out. Team, any final thoughts before we leave?
Hey, but don't. Yeah, I was gonna say don't leave yet because hey, Reds, you have something on Wednesday coming up, right?
I do.
What's Wednesday?
Isn't it this Wednesday when you announce the panel members for Dumbfuck of the Year?
Oh, yeah. So basically, we're on our 6th annual Dumbfuck of the Year award. So on the 20th, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick the 10 people that are going to be actually doing the nominations. Then on the 27th, we're actually going to do the nominations. And then the entire month of December, which is the 1st of December, midnight Eastern Time, to the 1st of January, midnight Eastern Time. That will be a voting period where you guys can vote for your favorite dumbfuck to win. So just a
Only
quick
one choice,
rundown.
guys. Only one choice.
Yes, it's Kyle, of course. And I also want people to know that, for fuck's sake, fuck all y'all. The voting will be done on, like I said, on the 1st on my channel. I'll be posting links on Twitter. I'll give some to Fight the Flat Earth. I'll give some to Team Skeptic as well. Just stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I am voting for Kyle.
Red, I have a question.
Fuck that guy.
I have a question for you. How many people voted last year?
15,000?
Oofed.
Oh, wow.
1,500 or
I wasn't
15,000?
thinking it was that
15,000.
high. Yeah, I didn't think.
Wow,
I didn't think it
that's
was that
really
high, but I
impressive,
think
Red.
this year we might actually break that record. We're gonna break the record. That's my whole goal, is to have 45,000 total votes for Dumb Fuck of the Year. It needs to spread to that many people, and that many people need to be vested in the outcome.
Let me rephrase there now, because I got them. No, the fourth annual Dumb Fuck of the Year had that many votes because a lot of people start using vote bots and cheating.
Yep.
There's the fifth annual Dumb Fuck of the Year. I think we had like maybe 1,000. So if you can break that record, by all means, be my guest. But hey, listen, this award is not serious in the slightest. I encourage people to cheat, so by all means, cheat away, stuff the ballot box. I don't give a fuck.
What time is it happening on
votes,
Wednesday, Reds?
It will be probably in the evening. I'll probably do it around 7 p.m. EST for the panel nomination. We're not picking those who are running. We're only picking those who are going to be the ones picking for those who are running. So there's a process for this thing that is not serious in the slightest. And because
I've got my interview with JM Truth about that time. Any chance of doing it like an hour earlier?
We could probably push an hour early. It's probably going to be a very quick handle. Like, okay, you're in, perfect. Trump is happy because you're in.
And then it's going to be you're going to do your interview, Fight the Flat Earth with him, and then we're going to do an after show on my channel after JM Truth does his interview with Fight the Flat Earth. And I think
we go through what he says.
We may have Spurs Keysmo. Spurs Keysmo might be joining us to talk about how unfairly the Globe Earthers were treated at Flat Earth International Conference.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk shape of the Earth, but he just might come on and say he feels like we were also treated very unfairly, and he said he'd like to come on and talk about our treatment there.
Team, the police are at Robbie Davison's room right now. Shh.
Oh yeah, I know. Right? What?
But yeah, that's it for tonight, guys. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you, everyone, for super chatting. Thank you for joining in the chat and having fun. Thank you again, Ace. Thank you, Reds. Thank you, team. I know Sean had some connection problems and had to drop out, but he was here as always, at least in spirit. But yeah, remember, everybody, that stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat. Fight the flat. Fight the flat.